Chapter 155. Lin Xian used this method to purify the remaining spirit herbs. Several lumps of crystal-clear liquid floated in the air, emitting a medicinal fragrance. Next is the fusion, Lord Alcohol said. Then, he handed Lin Xian an inscription. This was a rather complicated inscription. It was 2 to 3 times more difficult than the purification inscription. Lin Xian focused his mind and calmed his breathing. He operated his soul force with all his strength, and finally, after failing once, he succeeded in drawing the fusion inscription. Several lumps of crystal-clear liquid were guided by him as they slowly gathered and fused. This process was very slow and consumed a lot of soul power. Lin Xian's forehead was covered in sweat. His face was slightly pale, but his eyes were shining. Finally, the liquid successfully gathered together. Finally, it's the refinement, Lord Alcohol said slowly. Lin Xian drew an inscription as the fist-sized liquid kept churning. Impurities were squeezed out once again. A strange fragrance gradually appeared in the air, becoming stronger and stronger. Lin Xian took out a wine flask and filled it with the spiritual liquid in the air. Then, he heaved a sigh of relief. This was his first time refining, so he wasn't very familiar with the technique. Furthermore, he had consumed more than half of his soul power and spirit power. He was very tired. Lord Alcohol gave a rare smile. You succeeded on your first try. Your talent is not bad. Lin Xian picked up the wine flask and took a sip before smiling bitterly. Compared to what Lord Alcohol had refined, it was far inferior. It seems like I still need to practice more. Lin Xian placed the wine flask to the side and began meditating to recover. He practiced in his room for the entire day. During this period, Tong Lan came once and left when she realized that she couldn't enter the room. The next day, Lin Xian went out to bid farewell to the Tong family. He wanted to head to the Snow Province. With his speed and his cultivation along the way, it would take him about a month to arrive. Counting the days, it was the right time to leave. He found Tong Lan and prepared to bid farewell. Brother Lin, Tong Lan will remember your kindness. If there's anything I can help you with, just let me know. Tong Lan said sincerely. Lin Xian waved his hand and left the Tong clan. He strolled around the city again, bought some things, and then left the city. With the map of Xia country in hand, Lin Xian checked the direction and began the arduous journey. According to his plan, most of the time, he would take the mountain roads. This way, he would be able to hunt some demonic beasts and search for spiritual herbs. He spent most of his time on cultivation, even when he was traveling. During this period, he had killed many demonic beasts, but he had also been chased by demonic beasts. A rank 5 demon wolf chased him for 4 to 5 days and almost ate him. In the end, Lin Xian still managed to escape. At night, by the river, Lin Xian raised a fire and roasted 2 wild beasts, preparing to feast. Suddenly, the palpitating feeling appeared again, as if a pair of eyes were staring at him from the darkness. Lin Xian furrowed his brows. He had been targeted after all. Kid, use lightning. The evil aura in his body is too strong. He's afraid of young objects. Lord Alcohol reminded him via voice transmission. Lin Xian stabbed his sword into the ground beside him. Then, golden electric arcs appeared all over his body, crackling. Indeed, the mysterious green-haired man didn't step forward. He only stared at Lin Xian from afar. However, the danger wasn't eliminated. Lin Xian had to maintain his lightning to intimidate the green-haired man. As the sky gradually brightened, the strange green-haired man disappeared into the mountains. Lin Xian heaved a sigh of relief, his face somewhat pale. After releasing lightning for an entire night, even with his abundant spiritual energy, he had nearly collapsed. Thankfully, he had obtained plenty of spirit wine in the blood-colored heavenly palace. He drank a cup and quickly recovered his spiritual energy. Lin Xian's heart was heavy as he couldn't act alone anymore. After entering the Snow Province, the environment had changed drastically. The colding aura was strong, and the green-haired man was likely to attack. He had to find someone to rely on to intimidate the green-haired man. Up ahead was the border city of Qingzhou. Let's go there first. Lin Xian put away the map and ran into the distance. The ancient town, the border city of Qingzhou, was close to the Snow Province. The climate here was very different from the central part of Qingzhou. It had become very cold. There was snow on the ground, and snowflakes were floating in the air. The pedestrians were all wearing thick animal fur coats. Lin Xian walked around the city in a thin robe, attracting the attention of some people. Very few people were like him. Even some warriors were wearing a bee skin coat. Lin Xian didn't want to attract attention, so he walked into a shop next to him. "Sir, please come in." The waiter welcomed Lin Xian in with a smile on his face. When he saw Lin Xian wearing so little, he knew business was coming. "Sir, the clothes in our shop are famous in the city. Some warriors in the Snow Province have come to buy them," the waiter said solemnly. "Judging from your appearance, you must be going to the Snow Province. Let me tell you, the Snow Province is too cold. It's not a place for people to live. I'll find you a thick coat. It's definitely warm." The waiter kept talking nonstop. "How do you know I'm going to the Snow Province?" Lin Xian asked with a smile. Everyone in the world knows that the snow-seeking sect in the Snow Province has become a third-grade sect. All the martial artists are running in that direction. You are obviously a martial artist, so you must be going there as well. Lin Xian smiled and pointed to a snow-white bear fur coat. "I'll take this. Sir, you have good taste." The waiter's eyes lit up. "This coat is made of the fur of the rank 4 demonic beast, the white magic bear. It's definitely warm, and it has a certain defensive function." Rank 4 demonic beast. Lin Xian was surprised. No wonder he could feel a strong aura from it. 30,000 low-grade spiritual stones, the waiter said with a smile. Lin Xian was not surprised. The fur of a rank 4 demonic beast was indeed expensive. There was a faint demonic aura on this white bear coat. Obviously, it was not handled well. The shop owner should know, so he only sold it for 30,000 low-grade spiritual stones. If it was normal, it should be worth 50,000 spiritual stones. After paying the spiritual stones, Lin Xian put on the white bear coat and left. As expected, it was much warmer after wearing it. Moreover, the skin of a rank 4 demonic beast could not be damaged by an ordinary martial artist in the third layer of the spiritual ocean tier. However, there was a faint demonic aura on this coat. If a martial artist wore it for a long time, it might damage his body. However, Lin Xian had a way to get rid of the demonic aura on it. Golden electric arcs surged on his body and covered the entire coat, as if it was covered with a layer of golden gauze. Traces of faint black chi gushed out and disappeared in the air. The demonic aura inside was removed by Lin Xian with the power of thunder and lightning. The entire coat became warmer and its defensive power increased by a lot. Lin Xian's thunder and lightning grade was very high. At least the thunder and lightning produced by 2 spirit tier martial arts couldn't compare to his. This thunder and lightning came from Black Heaven sect guarding treasure, Cloud Thunder Mountain. It could be said to be exceptionally precious. Walking on the street, Lin Xian heard something that made him excited. 3 days later, an auction was going to be held here. It was said that there were many good things this time. Lin Xian had long wanted to auction off the dark tier saber on him. It seemed that this was a good opportunity. Chapter 156. It was still the auction hosted by the Myriad Treasure Tower, scheduled to be held 3 days later. At this time, many martial artists already gathered in the city. Originally, they were all going to rush to the snow-seeking sect, but after hearing about the auction, they all stopped. Just 3 days, everyone did not lack this time. But if they missed the good stuff because of this, it would be too late for regrets. Lin Xian put on a loose black robe, covering his entire body. Then, he headed to the Myriad Treasure Tower, preparing to sell the mystic rank treasure saber on him. A beautiful maidservant led him in and brought him to the treasure appraisal room. An old man sat there, and beside him was a beautiful woman. Lin Xian walked in, his entire body shrouded in the black robe, making people unable to see his true appearance. "I wonder what your distinguished self wants to sell," the old man asked. He was not surprised by Lin Xian's attire. Many people did not want to show their true appearance to people. Lin Xian flicked his storage ring, and a fiery red long saber appeared in his hand. Immediately, the temperature in the entire room rose by a lot. Slightly revolving spiritual energy, the long saber trembled, emitting a dazzling saber light. and a heat wave gushed out. "This is—" The white-robed old man was surprised, and the young woman beside him also had a look of surprise. Her beautiful eyes stared at Lin Xian, seemingly wanting to see through him. But it was as if there was an invisible force blocking her gaze. "This is a mystic rank treasure." The white-robed old man stroked the saber body and said, "Wei Wei, go and invite old man Qiu over." The young woman nodded and glanced at Lin Xian again, then quickly walked out of the room. Before long, a red-robed old man walked in. The old man's hair was disheveled, and his body even reeked of alcohol. He did not look like an appraiser at all. But towards this drunkard-like old man, Lin Xian was vigilant in his heart. He felt a powerful soul undulation from the drunkard old man. This undulation was even more than Master Hong's. After the red-robed old man saw the fiery red long saber, his eyes lit up, and the smell of alcohol on his body also disappeared. "This is a good thing." The drunkard old man took the long saber and wiped it with his finger. An inscription appeared on it, flickering non-stop. "Low profound rank artifact." The red-robed old man nodded and said, "Moreover, it should be an ancient object. The inscription technique on it is somewhat different from the current one." After feeling it for a bit, the red-robed old man said, "It should be able to increase the attack by about 40%, and it also has the rare fire damage. I estimate that it can be sold for more than 100,000 low-grade spirit stones." The red-robed old man said, "The starting price is set at 100,000 low-grade spirit stones. Do you have any objections?" Lin Xian shook his head and had no objections. He had asked Lord Alcohol, and with his own calculations, he felt that it was possible. "It's like this. If the auction is successful, we will charge a 10% commission," the red-robed old man continued. Lin Xian agreed. Although it pained him a little, this was a rule that no one could avoid. Seeing that Lin Xian was so straightforward, the two old men were also happy. After the white-robed old man finished registering, he handed Lin Xian an information card. "After the auction is over, you can use this token to collect the spirit stones." After saying that, he handed over a white token. "This is a silver token. After the auction is successful, you will be a silver customer of our 10,000 treasure tower. With this token, the next time you auction something, the commission will only be 8%. Lin Xian reached out to take it and put it in his storage ring. His hands were slender, strong, and very young. The three people in the room were a little surprised. They did not expect the owner of the long saber to be so young. The white-robed old man subconsciously probed, but Lin Xian's body blocked him with a layer of energy. "I was reckless," the white-robed old man said apologetically. He was indeed a little curious just now. However, the result of his probing made him even more curious. The black-robed man in front of him actually had a strong soul power. "It's fine," Lin Xian said indifferently. "If someone consigns a long sword treasure, can you inform me?" "No problem," the white-robed old man said. He knew that some people like to trade below, which could save some trouble. Getting a response, Lin Xian turned around and left. Looking at Lin Xian's disappearing back view, the red-robed old man sighed in admiration. Soul power is pretty good. So young and has such soul power. Could he be the disciple of those few old fellows? Doesn't seem like it. Those few people all have arrogance on them. But this person is very steady, the red-robed old man said solemnly. Either way, he will still come. If possible, there's no harm in roping him in, the white-robed old man said. Leaving the 10,000 treasure tower, Lin Xian stayed in an inn and continued cultivating. When he was tired from practicing inscriptions, he would cultivate the longevity art. After his mind power recovered, he would practice inscriptions again. In a blink, 3 days already passed. He put on a black robe and walked towards the 10,000 treasure tower. Today, the people going to the 10,000 treasure tower were clearly much more. The streets appeared crowded. The 10,000 treasure tower's entrance was even more packed. Although it was crowded, in front of the 10,000 treasure tower, no one dared to fight. Lin Xian fished out the silver token and was received respectfully by the attendant inside. Under the envious gazes of countless people, he slowly walked in. Who is that person? He can actually walk through the special passageway. Quite a few people discussed animatedly. After Lin Xian walked in, there were still some people who entered through the special passageway. These people were all members of some major factions, their identities and statuses incomparably noble. After Lin Xian went in, he inquired about the consignment sale situation. In the end, he learned that there were indeed longswords and treasured artifacts to be auctioned, but private purchases were not accepted. Lin Xian heaved a sigh, then walked into the auction hall and found a place to sit down. Silver rank customers did not have the right to go to private rooms unless they advanced to gold rank. Sitting in his seat, Lin Xian quietly released his soul power and explored the entire venue. He was very cautious. Some crucial and important places he directly skipped over so as to avoid causing unnecessary misunderstandings. Through soul power, he sensed some familiar people. Among them, he discovered that the Tsang family's disciples had arrived. Tsang Lei followed behind a young man with a cold expression, sitting in the middle position, while the other person was Master Hong. He entered the private room under the attendant's reception. It seemed that these people should be heading to Snow Province and stopped here on their way. Lin Xian secretly guessed. He closed his eyes to rest, adjusting his state to the best. Not long after, the sound of a drum sounded and spread throughout the hall. Suddenly, the auction hall quieted down, and everyone's eyes looked forward. There was a crystal auction table, and at this moment, it was lit up. Everyone, thank you for giving us the honor to participate in our 1,000 Treasure Towers auction. There are indeed a lot of good things today. I hope everyone can return with satisfaction. The one who spoke was the white-robed old man that Lin Xian had seen before. He said with a smile, I believe everyone has some information about the items being auctioned this time, so I won't say much here. Next, we will auction our first item. After the white-robed old man finished speaking, a female attendant with a sexy figure in light clothes walked over with a jade plate. Chapter 157. The first item is the Jade Miracle Pill. This is a type of pill created by an inscription master. I believe everyone should be familiar with it. This pill can increase the spirit power of a Sea of Spirit Realm martial artist. It is very pure, and martial artists only need to absorb it. The white-robed old man explained. Lin Xian understood that this pill could shorten the cultivation time and allow martial artists to quickly increase their cultivation in a short period of time. However, one couldn't eat too much of this pill. After all, it wasn't cultivated by oneself. No matter how pure it was, it still contained impurities. There are a total of 3 pills, and they will be auctioned separately. The white-robed old man obviously knew about this. He slowly said, the starting price is 10,000 low-grade spirit stones, and each bid must increase by at least 1,000. After the white-robed old man finished speaking, the people below boiled with excitement. Most of the people present were martial artists in the Sea of Spirit Realm. They needed this pill more than anything else. Immediately, many people began to bid. 12,000, 15,000, 18,000. Shouts came one after another. Lin Xian was speechless. It seemed that he had underestimated the temptation of this pill. For ordinary martial artists, the increase in their cultivation would greatly increase their strength. Perhaps they would be valued in the sect or have a higher chance of escaping during an adventure. In the end, the first Jade Miracle Pill was bought at the price of 22,000. As for the remaining 2 pills, they were sold for 20,000 and 24,000 respectively. 3 pills were sold for nearly 70,000 low-grade spirit stones. This was something that Lin Xian didn't dare to imagine before. The white-robed old man was also very satisfied with the price of the first item. The following matters went smoothly. Every item that appeared in the auction house was not ordinary. If there were no objections, it would be sold. Lin Xian didn't make a move. He didn't lack cultivation methods or pills, but he needed a sharp weapon. The auction proceeded slowly, and in 2 hours, 7 items were sold. At this time, the white-robed old man on the auction stage said loudly, the next item can be said to be a rare item. I hope everyone can grasp it. His words aroused the interest of the crowd. Many people were guessing what the item was. Master Bai, don't keep us in suspense. Hurry up and say it. Below the stage, an impatient martial artist shouted. Everyone looked curiously at the auction stage, waiting for the white-robed old man to reveal the answer. A beautiful maid walked forward with a fiery red saber in her hand. The white-robed old man held the saber in his hand and gently swung it in the air. A 10-meter-long blade light suddenly appeared and streaked across the sky. It was accompanied by a heat wave that soared into the sky. Whoosh! Like a sea of fire spreading, the sky was dyed red. Mystic rank artifact. The crowd below cried out in surprise when they felt this power. Whoosh! 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 For a moment, everyone's fiery eyes were focused on the auction stage. The white-robed old man was very satisfied with this result. He laughed and said, "That's right. It is indeed a profound rank treasure, and it is also an ancient artifact. The origin of this saber is mysterious. It's not a product of this era. Everyone, don't miss this opportunity." The white-robed old man put the saber back and said with a smile, "The starting price is 100,000 low-grade spiritual stones. Each bid must be at least 10,000 spiritual stones." His words echoed in the auction house for a long time. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air, and the fire in their hearts was extinguished. 100,000 spiritual stones was not a small number. Ordinary soul realm martial artists could not afford it at all. Only some disciples of large sects or young masters of aristocratic families could afford such a huge sum. Once these people participated in the auction, the price would definitely be more than 100,000 spiritual stones. The scene was silent for a moment. Ordinary disciples could not afford it, and the rich people were watching. Lin Xian frowned slightly. This was not what he wanted to see. 110,000, he said indifferently. A profound rank treasure saber was not common. He did not believe that these people would let it go. Sure enough, after he opened his mouth, people increased the price one after another. The price of the fiery red saber kept rising until it reached 150,000. Ordinary martial artists had already begun to swallow their saliva. Lin Xian's eyes flashed, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He knew that the price would not stop here because he noticed that one of the people participating in the auction was a disciple of the Tsang family. He was Tsang Lei's brother, Tsang Bao. As a swordsman and a genius disciple on the hidden dragon roll, Lin Xian believed that he would not let go of this opportunity. Sure enough, Tsang Bao's face was gloomy, and he seemed to be a little impatient. He snorted coldly and said in a cold voice, 200,000. Silence, absolute silence. Only Tsang Bao's voice echoed. Everyone was shocked by his increase in price. Lin Xian smiled in satisfaction. This price had already exceeded his budget. Even the white-robed old man on the auction stage was smiling. Just when everyone thought that it was over, a lazy voice sounded. 210,000. What? Someone is increasing the price. Someone is not giving face to Tsang Bao. In Qingzhou, there was basically no one who did not know Tsang Bao. Now, someone was trying to snatch food from the tiger's mouth. However, when everyone found out the source of the voice, they all fell silent. That was because the voice came from one of the private rooms. Those who could enter the private rooms were either of prominent status or outstanding strength. They were far from what they could compare to. Tsang Bao's face was gloomy. He looked at the private room on the second floor and clenched his fists. 220,000. Tsang Bao called out the price. 230,000. That voice was still lazy, and there was no change in it. 250,000. Tsang Bao gritted his teeth and said, this was already his limit. Any more, and he would have to give up. His knuckles turned pale because of the force he exerted. With this saber, he could definitely enter the top 50 of the hidden dragon roll. 260,000. That voice seemed to be saying something insignificant. Tsang Bao's body stiffened. He did not continue to bid and sat there with a gloomy face. On the auction stage, the white-robed old man said with a smile, congratulations to the owner of Private Room 3 for obtaining this Mist-class saber. Everyone was amazed. The price of 260,000 was already beyond the value of a low-class Mist-class treasure. However, that person did not care at all. The happiest person was Lin Xian. He did not expect that a low-class Mist-class treasure could be sold for 260,000 spiritual stones. This was already close to the value of a mid-class Mist-class treasure. With this money, He had more confidence in the longsword treasure that would be auctioned later. The auction that followed was a bit dull. The mood of the crowd was clearly not very high. However, the next item pushed the atmosphere of the auction to a climax. The white-robed old man took out a long sword and raised it high in the air. The sword was 3 feet long, and there were ancient inscriptions carved on it. The blade of the sword was like autumn water, dripping with a cold light. The long sword gently danced, and the sword light flashed, cutting through the void. Lin Xian could acutely feel that the power of this long sword was far above the fiery red long sword. This sword is called Autumn Scar, a mid-class mist-class treasure. The starting price is 200,000. Each bid must be at least 10,000 higher. As the white-robed old man's voice fell, the crowd boiled over. At this time, the doors of the auction slowly opened and a group of people walked in. Everyone was puzzled and turned to look. They knew that during the auction, martial artists were not allowed to casually enter. But now, someone had disregarded this rule and walked in. Lin Xian also turned to look. When he saw that person, his body froze. Behind him, a group of people stood at the entrance, their bodies releasing a powerful aura. The person in the middle had sharp eyebrows and sharp eyes. His aura was sharp, like a divine sword that had been unsheathed. Lin Xian's pupils shrank, and he could not help but clench his fists. Chapter 158. Lin Feng. Many people were surprised when they saw the silhouette behind them. Lin Feng was ranked 5th on the Hidden Dragon ranking. It was said that he had fought against the 3rd-ranked cultivator, and that his ranking had risen again. Besides, he was from the Sword Lake Palace and had a noble status. Something happened on the way, so I came late. Sorry for disturbing you, Lin Feng said to the old men from the 10,000 Treasures Tower. The few of them nodded slightly in tacit agreement. The Sword Lake Palace was one of the top powers in the Xia country, and Lin Feng was the leader of the younger generation. Even though the 10,000 Treasures Tower was powerful, they didn't want to offend the Sword Lake Palace. Lin Feng and the others were invited into a private room, and the crowd looked back at the auction stage. The old man in the white robe cleared his throat and said in a clear voice, "The Autumn Scar sword starts at 200,000. The auction starts now." Lin Xian took a deep breath. At that moment, he had the urge to rush up to Lin Feng. Luckily, he controlled himself. He wanted to go back to the Sword Lake Palace and defeat Lin Feng in front of everyone. He wanted to restore his reputation. After calming himself down, Lin Xian returned to the auction. At that moment, the price had already risen to 250,000, and it was still rising. After all, it was a medium Xian level treasure which could increase one's attack power by 60%. Everyone wanted it. 300,000. Lin Feng's private room called out the price. But Lin Xian knew that it wasn't Lin Feng's voice. It was probably the voice of someone next to him. In the 5th private room, Lin Feng was sitting comfortably on a chair. Next to him was a young man with a sword mark on his forehead. "What? Are you interested in that sword?" Lin Feng asked indifferently. "I just want to collect it." The young man with the sword mark smiled. 310,000. At this moment, a lazy voice rang out, clearly echoing in the hall. The crowd was stunned. They hadn't thought that someone would dare to compete with Lin Feng. Also, the crowd realized that the owner of the voice was the one who had won the bid. When Songbao heard that voice, his body started to tremble. That voice had made him lose his opportunity. In the 5th private room, the young man with the sword mark groaned coldly. So there are people who aren't afraid of death. He was about to fight back, but at that moment, another bid sounded in the hall. 320,000. His voice was very steady, and his tone was firm. Everyone was in an uproar. They all turned their heads to look for the person who had spoken. Lin Xian was in the hall, and didn't try to hide himself. Soon, someone noticed him. Countless gazes gathered on him. Many people were puzzled. Who is this black-robed man? I don't know. He surprisingly dared steal from Lin Feng's people. He's definitely going to die, whispered those people. In their opinion, the person in the 3rd private room had dared to speak because he had a high social status. He didn't fear Lin Feng at all. On the other hand, Zhang Xian was unable to see through the cultivation of the black-robed man, and given that he was seated in the main hall, It was likely that the other party had an ordinary background. However, he actually dared to participate in the bidding. This made everyone unable to see through him. I've seen him before. He has a silver medallion in his hand. Someone who had seen Lin Xian at the entrance spoke up. Many people shook their heads and sneered. Although the silver token was precious, it was much less valuable than the person in the private room. Lin Xian saw everyone's reaction, but he did not say anything. He had to get his hands on this sword. In the fifth private room, the young man's face became very ugly. It was fine if the people in the other private rooms competed with him. After all, they were all people of the same status. However, a cultivator sitting in the hall dared to participate in this matter. This made him feel humiliated. "You're courting death." The young man's voice was cold. His eyes were like lightning. Through the layers of barriers, he locked onto Lin Xian. Humph. Lin Xian felt the gaze of the people on the second floor. He turned his head slightly. There was a trace of sword intent in his eyes. He cut off the gaze that was looking at him. There was a small fluctuation in the air. Some of the stronger people noticed that something was wrong. Quite a few people revealed looks of surprise. The young man was stunned. Then, his face became gloomy. He didn't expect that he would be at a disadvantage. Just now, there was a trace of sword intent in his eyes. He originally wanted to teach the black-robed man a lesson. However, he didn't expect that the other party's chi was even fiercer than his. He directly attacked him. "Hey, I seem to feel a trace of sword intent." Lin Feng frowned and looked at the black-robed man below. At the same time, there was a soft sound of surprise in the third private room. Lin Xian felt that a soul power flowed out of the third private room and probed him. Lin Xian's eyes flashed. He also mobilized his soul power and covered his body to prevent anyone from probing. In the third private room, a handsome young man was lying lazily. His whole body sank into a soft reclining chair. Suddenly, his face changed slightly. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes. Just now, his soul perception was blocked. Obviously, the other party was also a master of soul power. His soul is outstanding. There was a trace of sword intent just now. Who is this person? The handsome young man touched his chin and was lost in thought. The black-robed man's performance was beyond everyone's expectations. For a moment, his identity became very mysterious. 350,000. The young man said coldly. 360,000. The handsome young man in the third private room said lazily. 380,000. Lin Xian said in a deep voice. The price rose rapidly. Soon, it reached 400,000. Lin Xian frowned. He had earned 260,000 spirit stones from auctioning off the long saber, and over 200,000 spirit herbs. Including the spirit stones he had obtained from the others, he had about 500,000 spirit stones. The current price made him feel a little depressed. However, fortunately, the owner of the third private room withdrew from the competition. Now, only Lin Xian and the young man were left. 420,000. The young man said coldly, 450,000. Lin Xian's voice did not change at all. Humph. In the fifth private room, the young man snorted coldly. This price has exceeded the value of the long sword. Don't compete anymore. Lin Feng said indifferently. Don't worry. I won't bid anymore. But there are many ways to get that sword. The young man looked at Lin Xian with an extremely cold gaze. 450,000. Is there anyone else? On the auction stage, the old man in the white robe asked loudly. He was overjoyed. No one answered. This price was already high enough. Even the people in the private rooms withdrew from the competition. In the end, the Autumn Scar Sword was won by Lin Xian. The next item is very special. It is a piece of information about a spiritual weapon. The old man in the white robe said in a deep voice. Originally, Lin Xian wanted to leave. He wanted to go backstage and trade. However, the information in front of him made him stop. Not only him, but the entire hall was boiling. A spiritual weapon was a top weapon in the eyes of the world. Usually, only the top sects and clans had one. But now, a new spiritual weapon had appeared. How could these people not be excited? However, how could a piece of information be auctioned? Everyone looked at the auction stage. Chapter 159. It's here. Lin Feng narrowed his eyes in the fifth private room. Don't worry, young Master Feng. It's definitely ours. The young man clenched his fists and said. Outside, everyone was discussing animatedly. Their words were filled with excitement. On the auction stage, the old man in the white robe waved his hand to silence the whole place. Everyone, this information comes from a map. Whoever buys this map will be able to obtain this information. There's one more thing I have to tell you. This map is incomplete. The old man in the white robe said in a deep voice. In fact, he doesn't have much confidence. After all, one incomplete map may not be able to infer anything. Sure enough, after hearing about the incomplete map, many people booed, and half of the enthusiasm in their hearts was extinguished. The ordinary warriors in the hall were talking with each other, and it was noisy. An ancient map, the starting price is 300,000 spiritual stones. The auction starts now. These warriors booed. In their opinion, no one would buy such a thing. Lin Xian shook his head, stood up, and prepared to leave. 350,000. A voice rang out like a clap of thunder in everyone's ears. What? Someone really bid. Those warriors were stunned. Could it be that the map really recorded it? Lin Xian also suddenly turned around and looked at the fifth private room on the second floor. He recognized that it was Lin Feng's voice. Did he come specifically for this map? Lin Xian was puzzled. 360,000. The lazy voice sounded again. The crowd was excited. Although they couldn't afford it, they could watch the fun. Sure enough, after these two people bid, some more people bid. These people were all VIPs in the private rooms on the second floor. They would rather buy the wrong thing than let it go. Lin Xian shook his head and turned to leave. These prices were already beyond his ability. Even if he could get the treasure map, he might not be able to keep it. After all, the temptation of a spiritual treasure was too great. It was enough to make anyone go crazy. Lin Xian's departure attracted the attention of many people. A mid-grade profound rank treasure was enough to make one's heart palpitate with excitement. In the fifth private room, the young man stared at Lin Xian's figure with an evil smile. You can't run away. No one can take away what I want. Lin Xian sensed all of those subtle gazes. He sneered in his heart and quickly walked backstage. With his current strength, he could fight against a warrior at the late stage of the third level of the spiritual sea realm. If he had the Autumn Scar Sword, then even against a warrior at the fourth level of the spiritual sea realm, he would have the power to battle. In addition, he also had the Bronze Gauntlet and the Yellow Talisman treasure. These two items were enough to kill a martial artist at the fifth layer of the spiritual ocean realm. However, he would not use it unless he had no other choice. This kind of thing would be damaged every time it was used. Cracks had already appeared on the Bronze Gauntlet, which made his heart ache. After arriving at the backstage, Lin Xian handed over the soul stones and received the Autumn Scar Sword. Get that black scabbard. Lord Alcohol sent a voice transmission. Lin Xian glanced at the black scabbard on the jade plate. It was very ordinary and nothing special. However, he naturally wouldn't let go of something that could tempt Lord Alcohol. Can you give me this scabbard? Lin Xian asked casually. Sure. The Thousand Treasures Tower in charge didn't care about a scabbard and gave it to Lin Xian on the spot. Putting away the scabbard, Lin Xian let out a sigh of relief. Nodding his head, Lin Xian prepared to leave. Little friend, please wait. An old voice rang out, sounding abnormally strong. Lin Xian stopped in his tracks, and a trace of caution appeared in his eyes. He said in a deep voice, What? Thousand Treasures Tower can't even bear to give out a scabbard. Little friend, don't misunderstand. I want to talk to you. The red-robed old man appeared with a smile. Don't worry, I'm not here for some scabbard. I just want to talk to you. All right, what do you want to talk about? Lin Xian's heart moved. He needed a powerful force to intimidate the mysterious green-haired man. If he could get closer to the Thousand Treasures Tower, it would undoubtedly be the best. Little friend, this way please. The red-robed man smiled. Lin Xian followed behind him and walked into an antique room. I wonder if little friend can take off the black robe? The red-robed old man said. I represent the Thousand Treasures Tower to discuss something with little friend. I absolutely have no malice. Okay, Lin Xian said solemnly. He waved his hand and put the black robe into his storage ring. The red-robed old man looked at Lin Xian, a hint of shock appearing in his eyes. He knew that Lin Xian was young, but he didn't expect that he would be so young. This was clearly a youth. I wonder what senior is looking for this brat for? Lin Xian asked politely. Hoo-hoo, heroes come from the youth, the red-robed old man said while stroking his beard. I want to ask if little friend is an inscription master? Done talking, he looked at Lin Xian with a look of anticipation. And Lin Xian nodded. The old man's gaze made him feel somewhat nervous. Then do you know about the inscription tower? Lin Xian shook his head. I've been cultivating with my master in the mountains. I've only recently come out to explore the world. For his own safety, he once again brought up his incorporeal master. Oh, I wonder who your master is? The red-robed old man asked subconsciously. My master is very low-key, Lin Xian lied. I wonder what senior is looking for me for. He quickly changed the topic. The red-robed old man didn't think much about it. After all, many experts like to live in seclusion. At that moment, he said slowly, if possible, I would like to invite you to participate in a competition in the name of the Thousand Treasures Tower. It is said that the inscription tower was left behind by an inscription master. It is located at the border between the Xia country and the Shadow country. There are some unique inscriptions and the inscription master's insights inside. It is a sacred place for inscription masters. However, due to its geographical location, it is determined that it can't be occupied by any country alone. So every 3 years, the Xia country and the Shadow country will decide which side will enter by means of a martial arts competition. The Xia country has lost twice in a row. This time, we can't lose again. There was a trace of anger and helplessness on the red-robed old man's face. If it's a competition, you shouldn't be looking for me, right? Lin Xian was puzzled. Isn't it better to be an expert on the hidden dragon role? Little friend, although it is a competition, the participants must be inscription masters. Although there are many geniuses on the hidden dragon role, there are only a few inscription masters. Little friend, your soul power is the strongest I have ever seen. It far surpasses that of your peers. Lin Xian understood. Indeed, his soul force was much stronger than that of an average first-grade inscription master, let alone people of the same age. Don't worry. As long as you take action, you will be rewarded, the red-robed old man hurriedly said when he saw that Lin Xian was silent. Inside his body, Lord Alcohol said, Xiao Xuanzi, if that inscription tower is real, you can go in and take a look. Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. He pondered for a moment and said slowly, I wonder when this competition will begin? I don't want to miss the Snow-Seeking Sect's grand event. Little friend, don't worry. This competition will be held after the Snow-Seeking Sect's grand event. If I win the competition, will I be able to get a spot to enter the inscription tower? Lin Xian asked in a deep voice. The red-robed old man was taken aback, and his face sank. A strong aura slowly seeped out, and the entire room became very oppressive. Lin Xian's spirit sea shook, producing a rumbling sound. At the same time, he spread out his soul power to resist the pressure. His expression didn't change as he slowly stretched out his hand and drew in the air. An ancient inscription appeared in the air, emitting a strange light. This is? The red-robed old man's pupils constricted, and his face was filled with shock. Chapter 160. The inscriptions in midair completely stunned the red-robed elder. What exquisite inscriptions! Exclaimed the red-robed elder after a long while. I need to discuss your request with others, said the red-robed elder. No matter what, I will give you an answer in 3 days. Thank you, senior. Lin Xian bowed and walked out of the room. Looking at Lin Xian's back, the red-robed elder took a deep breath. This youth's attainment in inscriptions far exceeded his expectations. He looked at the inscriptions that were gradually disappearing in midair and fell into deep thought. Lin Xian walked out of the room and headed straight outside. He had drawn the inscriptions under Lord Alcohol's guidance, but he hadn't expected it to really stun the red-robed elder. It seems like Lord Alcohol's inscriptions far surpassed these people. Lin Xian was delighted. When he walked out of the 10,000 Treasures building, the auction had just ended and the crowd was rushing out. Through the conversations of others, he learned that Lin Feng had bought the last remnant map for 600,000 low-grade spirit stones. What a spendthrift! Lin Xian pursed his lips and walked towards the inn. Behind him, a few obscure gazes fell on him. One of them was the sword-mark youth beside Lin Feng. Seeing Lin Xian check into the Four Seas Inn, the sword-mark youth sneered and left. Lin Xian naturally knew that these people were following him. However, he didn't take it to heart. If these people didn't open their eyes, he didn't mind sending them on their way. Back in his room, Lin Xian used the red flame sword to set up a defensive array before heaving a sigh of relief. After calming himself down, he flicked his storage ring and a long sword appeared in his hand. With a gentle sway, a sword shadow appeared in the air. It was like an autumn rainbow, chilling to the heart. Lin Xian activated the lightning in his body. In an instant, a golden arc climbed up the sword. When he circulated his spiritual power again, the golden arc disappeared and a cyan gale wrapped around the sword, increasing its spirituality out of thin air. Lin Xian was very satisfied with this. He felt that the 450,000 low-grade spirit stones had not been spent in vain. Humph, you don't know what's important. In my opinion, the black scabbard is the good stuff. Lord Alcohol snorted. Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat when he heard this. With a flip of his hand, he took out the black scabbard and looked at it curiously. Nothing special, Lin Xian muttered. Then, he activated his purple spirit eyes and carefully observed the surroundings. Finally, he even used his soul force to check inside and out. If it were that easy to see through, you wouldn't have gotten the item, Lord Alcohol said. Lord Alcohol, what does this do? Lin Xian asked. Sheath your sword, Lord Alcohol said. Lin Xian did as he was told and sheathed the Autumn Scar sword. Use the power of wind and thunder at the same time. Control your power and don't destroy the house. Lin Xian raised an eyebrow. Could it be? He activated the power of wind and thunder at the same time. Then, he controlled his strength and abruptly drew his sword. Qi. Qi. Under his control, the sword Qi was attached to the sword and was not released. However, he could clearly see that the power of wind and thunder had perfectly fused together. The air 3 feet in front of him had been sliced apart. This is the power of wind and thunder, Lin Xian exclaimed. He had long wanted to fuse the two powers together. However, without the corresponding martial arts, it was very difficult for him to succeed. But now, a black scabbard had actually solved this problem. It is indeed good stuff. He caressed the black scabbard and his face bloomed with joy. Oomph, now you know how to be happy. Lord Alcohol snorted. Hee. Lin Xian hugged the scabbard and laughed foolishly. For the next 2 hours, Lin Xian studied the black scabbard. He realized that the more power of wind and thunder he injected, the longer it could be maintained. However, it could only be maintained for 10 breaths of time. In other words, after 10 breaths of time, the power of wind and thunder on the sword would be separated again. However, this was enough for Lin Xian. In the evening, Lin Xian went out for a meal before returning to the house. He lived in a small independent courtyard, which was very quiet. In the following time, he put away the Autumn Scar sword and the black scabbard and began to practice inscriptions. These days, he had not slacked off on his practice, including martial arts. Inscriptions were the same as martial arts. It was like rowing a boat against the current. If you did not advance, you would fall behind. Lin Xian did not slack off for even a moment. His inscriptions were also rapidly improving. Late at night, Lin Xian exited from his cultivation state and took out some spirit wine to quickly recover. He had a premonition that someone would make a move for the Autumn Scar sword. Raising his body's condition to the extreme, Lin Xian closed his eyes and began to cultivate. Indeed, in the latter half of the night, he sensed the aura of martial artists. Spreading out his soul power, Lin Xian grasped the situation within a 10-meter radius. On the roof, 3 figures quietly approached. Lin Xian's lips curled up. His body flashed and disappeared. The 3 men in black had their faces covered, and their auras were concealed. You 3, what are you doing on my roof in the middle of the night? A mocking voice was heard from behind them, and the three men in black were shocked. "Let's go," the middle man in black roared. The three moved quickly, and the aura on their bodies exploded like a flood. The spirit power surged, shaking the air. These three were all martial artists at the third sky of the Sea of Souls realm. With the three of them working together, they formed a triangle. "Hand over the autumn scar sword, and we will spare your life," the middle man in black roared. "Are you talking about this?" Lin Xian took out the autumn scar sword and waved it in front of the three. The three's gazes were attracted by the long sword, and their breathing became hurried. "Hand it over to us," the man in black roared. "You guys are not worthy of this sword." Lin Xian hung the long sword on his waist. "Kid, you are looking for death." The three men in black were furious and attacked together. F***ck off. Lin Xian took a step forward and roared out a sound wave. "Who?" The translucent sound wave vibrated, and together with the soul power attack, it directly pierced through the defensive armor of the three. Pooh, pooh, pooh. The three were covered by the sound wave, and their bodies seemed to have been severely wounded. Horrifying cracks appeared on their bodies. All of a sudden, the three were covered in blood. "Back off." The three men in black robes had fear in their eyes. Is he even human? Just a shout was enough to severely wound them. "You want to leave?" Lin Xian's body flashed, and he blocked the way of the three. Don't do anything stupid." The three were bleeding all over, and their voices were shaking. "Leave your storage rings, and don't appear in front of me again." "Yes, yes." The three took off the storage rings on their fingers and threw them to Lin Xian, then quickly ran away. Putting away the three storage rings, Lin Xian's expression did not relax. Instead, it became extremely serious. He felt a powerful aura appear nearby. Most of the warriors nearby had seen Lin Xian's attack, and the ones who still dared to make a move now were undoubtedly powerful warriors. Pap, pap, pap. A crisp clapping sound was heard, and a teenager with a sword mark in between his eyebrows appeared. With the cultivation of the second sky of the spiritual sea realm, he could actually beat back three warriors at the third level of the spiritual sea realm with one attack. Not simple indeed. However, if you want to get the autumn scar sword with just this, I am afraid that it is not enough. The aura of the teenager with the sword mark suddenly became sharp, as if thousands of sword lights had pierced through the air. Chapter 161. Sword Chi hummed and buzzed. The young man took a step forward as his aura increased again. It was like a huge mountain pressing down. Nearby, some warriors poked their heads out and looked at the battle in the distance nervously. Who is that? What a horrifying aura. There are no weaklings around Linfeng. It seems like that young man is going to be in trouble. The young man stared at Lin Xian as he slowly pulled out his longsword. It was a golden longsword with a curved body, like a crawling, poisonous snake. The long sword left its scabbard, turning into a curved beam of light in the air. Golden Snake Sword. He is Golden Snake Sword Yin Hui. The warriors nearby exclaimed. Golden Snake Sword Yin Hui, ranked 32nd on the Hidden Dragon rank. No one had expected him to appear here. With the long sword in his hand, the young man's body twisted in a weird way, like a snake. Behind him, a sword-shaped snake shadow gradually appeared. It was ferocious and terrifying. Lin Xian held his autumn scar sword as all the chi in his body condensed into one point. He knew very well that he had no advantage when it came to spiritual power. However, his attacks were extremely powerful. Especially after the fusion of wind and thunder, his battle power had increased again. Golden Snake Strike. The young man swung out his sword. Sword chi flashed as it covered the sky. Wind and thunder explosion. Lin Xian stomped on the ground. Chi waves spread out like water splashes as his entire body shot out like an arrow. Boom. Approaching the golden snake sword chi, Lin Xian suddenly pulled out his sword. Boom. The air seemed to explode as a 10-meter-long sword light flew out like a lightning bolt. With one sword, wind and thunder explosion. Boom. 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 The autumn scar sword slashed out diagonally, hitting the weak point of the golden snake sword chi. All of a sudden, The golden snake sword chi weakened rapidly and disappeared completely. Yin Hui's face looked gloomy. His body flashed as he quickly arrived beside Lin Xian. His golden snake sword stabbed out like lightning. Ding, 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 ding. A series of metal clashing sounds rang out in the air. Balls of bright sparks burst out like shooting stars. Every attack of the two was the tip of the sword against the tip of the sword. It was extremely accurate. The difference was that the sword mark youth was advancing while Lin Xian was retreating. There was nothing he could do about it. His opponent's spiritual energy was too strong. Every time they collided, his arm would go numb. Bang! The two swords clashed again, and Lin Xian retreated a few steps with a gloomy face. If that's all you've got, then go to hell. The young man waved his sword, and the sword light split into 2, then 4, and finally 8 golden pythons, which pounced on Lin Xian. Lin Xian's gaze flickered. His opponent's cultivation of the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier was too much of a suppression on him. It seemed that he could only use sword intent. Lin Xian sheathed his sword back into its black scabbard, and his eyes gradually turned cold. Are you giving up? In the distance, someone sighed. Using the cultivation of the 2nd layer of the spiritual ocean tier to resist the 5th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. This is already a miracle. In the darkness behind these martial practitioners, there were 2 old figures standing far away. One of them was wearing a red robe, and the other was wearing a white robe. They were the 2 elders of the 1,000 Treasure Tower. Should we save him? The white-robed elder asked. No, his strength should be more than this, the red-robed elder said in a low voice. Look again. Just as the two were talking, a martial practitioner in front exclaimed. He fought back. Indeed, Lin Xian fought back. The sword intent in his body surged, and the sharp sword intent burst out in an instant. Hurricane style. The sword shadow swept out, and 4 green hurricanes dozens of meters high flew out, sweeping the sky and the earth, crashing into the golden pythons in all directions. With a swing of his sword, Lin Xian attacked continuously. He stepped on the phantom thunder step, and his body kept flashing as he quickly approached the young man. Wind thunder pierce. The green sword chi surged as if it had turned into a green dragon. Outside it, golden electric arcs surrounded it, crackling. The great dragon sword mark in Lin Xian's mind trembled, and the sword chi outside his body let out a dragon roar. The golden electric arcs merged into the sword chi and turned into golden dragon scales, which were extremely dazzling. Oh my God! What kind of chi is this? Someone exclaimed in the distance. Sword intent. The young man was moved for the first time, and there was deep jealousy in his eyes. This was the realm that all swordsmen dreamed of, but only a few people could comprehend it. Among the people he knew, only Lin Feng had comprehended sword intent. That abnormal combat strength made him tremble. This person can't be left alive. In an instant, the young man made up his mind. Neither he nor Lin Feng hoped that there would be someone who comprehended sword intent. Bang! The wind thunder sword chi was extremely fast, and in the blink of an eye, it attacked the young man. Thunder and lightning flashed, and the strong wind danced. The violent power destroyed the young man's body protection. When everything calmed down, Lin Xian frowned. On the opposite side, the young man slid back dozens of meters on the ground, and there was a deep dent in the ground. Most of the body protection armor on his body was broken, but it still didn't hurt him. Is this the strength of the 5th sky of the spiritual sea realm? It's really abnormal. Lin Xian sighed. The gap between their cultivation was too big, and he couldn't break the young man's defense. How dare you hurt me? You can die now. The young man's face was ferocious. No matter what, he had to kill Lin Xian. In the distance, a group of warriors was shocked. This combat strength was too terrifying. In the dark, the 2 elders in red and white were even more surprised. I didn't expect this boy to comprehend sword intent. It seems that there is hope for the battle of the inscription tower. The old man in red robe's eyes were shining. We can't let anything happen to him. The old man in white robe was ready to attack. Let's see what else this boy can do. The old man in red robe was not in a hurry. Since he saw the strange rune drawn by Lin Xian, he felt that Lin Xian was not simple. Now it seemed that it was true. Boy, let me see where your limit is. On the battlefield, Lin Xian suddenly attacked. The fusion wind movement was silent. Puff. Behind the young man, the air split open, and a sharp sword chi slashed his body. A horrifying crack appeared on his armor. It was a shocking sight. However, the young man's defense was too thick. Lin Xian's sword chi could only cut through half of it. Fusion wind movement. Lin Xian threw out sword chi one after another, and all of them flew towards the same spot. The young man was furious. At the same time, he was shocked. If he was hit by 3 sword chi at the same spot, he would definitely be injured. Fortunately, he was not someone with an undeserved reputation. He jumped and dodged 2 sword chi. The young man's body glided in the air, and the shadow of the golden snake appeared behind him. It combined with the golden snake sword in his hand and slashed downwards. It did not seem to be sword chi, but a real giant python descending from the sky. Violent and unrestrained spiritual energy came crashing down like a mountain, turning everything below into dust. At this moment, the martial artists in the vicinity all fled for their lives, running far away. Lin Xian retreated quickly and dodged the attack. At the same time, he waved the autumn scar sword in his hand and used the splitting wind movement. The air seemed to have been cut open, and there was a strange shift. The golden giant python in the air was pulled by an invisible force, as if it was about to be torn apart. Horrifying cracks appeared on some of the weaker parts. Whoosh! The young man ignored Lin Xian's attack and quickly came to his side. The curved golden snake sword glowed with a dim light and stabbed towards Lin Xian's left rib. Chapter 162. The angle of this attack was extremely tricky, specifically aimed at Lin Xian's vital points. If it hit, even if he survived, he would be half dead. Fortunately, Lin Xian's soul power was strong, and he sensed the danger immediately. Lin Xian moved almost at the same time as the young man made his move. He dodged quickly and left an afterimage on the spot. Puff! The golden snake sword pierced the afterimage and pierced through the air. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Lin Xian kept moving around the young man, leaving a golden shadow behind each time. You can't trap me. The young man was as steady as a rock. He pierced through the shadows like a poisonous snake. However, Lin Xian's goal was not to trap him. Even if the young man pierced through all the shadows, it was useless. Explode! Lin Xian shouted from afar. Rumble! The golden shadows were all condensed by golden thunderbolts, and they carried terrifying power. Now, with this explosion, everything within a radius of 100 feet was enveloped, forming a sea of lightning. Dozens of figures exploded. Golden waves rolled and swept in all directions. The young man was blown away, and his body was charred. Bang! He knelt on the ground in a sorry state. His hair was disheveled, and his face and body were charred. Brat, you've completely infuriated me. The young man looked cold, and his eyes seemed to be spitting fire. The sword mark on his forehead was about to be undone, and a terrifying aura was emitted from his body. Lin Xian's pupils shrank as he sensed a fatal danger. His soul power had touched the bronze gauntlet. If something went wrong, he would take action immediately. At this moment, a voice came from afar and a figure rushed over. Stop! No fighting in the ancient city. This voice was like rolling thunder, shaking the void. When the nearby martial artists heard it, their faces turned pale, and they couldn't even stand steadily. Lin Xian operated his soul power and sword essence to clear the voice. At the same time, he was secretly on guard. Humph! The young man did not seem to have heard the warning and continued to attack. The golden sword light converged into a thumb-thick golden line, which quickly pierced towards Lin Xian's heart. Lin Xian activated the ancient armor on his body with all his might. At the same time, he quickly put on the bronze gauntlet on his left hand. However, before he could make a move, the situation changed drastically. The terrifying golden thread shattered into several pieces in the air. The young man's face was pale as he kept retreating. Lin Xian was astonished. Suddenly, he frowned as he felt an immense pressure. Whoosh! At some point in time, a figure had appeared between the two of them. Purple chi covered his entire body. It was as mysterious as the nine heavens' purple chi. How dare you ignore my warning? The figure only said one sentence, and the sword-marked youth opposite him began to vomit blood. Harmonious spirit realm. Lin Xian gasped. To have such power, it was most likely only a person in the three spirit realms. He put away the bronze gauntlets and stood there cautiously. The next moment, the purple figure looked at him. In an instant, his entire body trembled as if his soul had been struck. In his mind, the great dragon's sword seal vibrated and turned into a roaring dragon. A warm current instantly flowed through his entire body, allowing him to recover from that uncomfortable state. The purple figure was surprised. He did not expect Lin Xian to be able to resist. Just as he was about to make a move, two light figures rushed out from afar. "Master, please calm down." Two light figures, one red and one white, rushed forward and bowed to the purple figure. The two old men went forward and whispered to the purple figure. In the end, the purple figure snorted. "Since it was your first offense, I'll let you go this time. If there's a next time, you'll be killed without mercy." "Yes," Lin Xian said respectfully. On the other side, the sword-marked youth also nodded unwillingly. "Both of you have to compensate for the loss this time. In the cities of the Xia, no fighting is allowed except for specific battle stages." In the end, Lin Xian and the sword-marked youth each paid a sum of spiritual stones and watched the master leave. The sword-marked youth glared at Lin Xian with a gloomy expression. "Kid, consider yourself lucky. But you won't be so lucky next time. Next time, I'll kill you with my sword." Lin Xian's voice was as cold as the autumn scar sword. He didn't pay any more attention to the young man. Instead, he thanked the two elders. "Young friend Lin, we agree to your conditions. Why don't you take us back to the 1,000 Treasure Tower to rest?" "Thank you, seniors." Lin Xian did not refuse and left with the two old men. The sword-marked youth also left with a gloomy face. The rest of the warriors also left one after another. However, they kept talking about the battle just now. The battle was too exciting. A warrior in the second tier of the spiritual sea realm fought against a warrior in the fifth tier. Treasured weapons, sword intent, and all kinds of attacks were endless. It was an eye-opener for them. After these people left, a green-haired man walked over slowly. He felt the aura around him and laughed sinisterly. Then, he blended into the darkness again. Lin Xian followed the two old men back to the 1,000 Treasure Tower and thanked them again. "Seniors, I have a request," Lin Xian said. "Oh, let's hear it. I wonder if the 1,000 Treasure Tower is heading to the snow-seeking sect. I want to go with you." "That's easy. We'll leave in a few days." "You can come with us," the red-robed old man said. Lin Xian was overjoyed. After bidding farewell to the two old men, he returned to his room. After closing the door, Lin Xian let out a heavy sigh. Today's battle gave him a sense of crisis. Recently, he had been living more comfortably. After calming down, Lin Xian began to comprehend the Wind Emperor's sword and the Great Dragon Sword Seal. For the next few days, Lin Xian spent his time cultivating. During the day, he practiced and tried various sword skills. He learned many moves from the two inheritances and perfected them under the guidance of Lord Alcohol. When he was tired, he drank spiritual wine and cultivated the longevity art. At night, he learned inscriptions from Lord Alcohol. His days were very fulfilling. Today was the 5th day since he came to the 1,000 Treasure Tower. Today was the day that the 1,000 Treasure Tower set off. Lin Xian went out early to wait. He exchanged insights with Lord Alcohol about comprehending the inheritances while waiting. These days, he comprehended the Wind Emperor's sword and the Great Dragon Sword Seal whenever he had time. Finally, he evolved a few fierce sword skills. The most powerful one was the Wind Thunder Dragon Thrust. For this move, he combined the Wind Emperor's sword, the Great Dragon Sword Seal, and the Heavenly Meteor. Although it consumed a lot of spiritual power, it was much more economical compared to the Heavenly Meteor. Moreover, according to his calculations, this move could break through the defense of a martial artist at the 5th level of the spiritual sea realm. Just a few days ago, he couldn't break through the defense of the sword-marked youth. Now, he had absolute confidence. As he was thinking, a group of people walked over. Among them were two old men in red and white, a middle-aged man, and a young man and woman. Among them, Lin Xian had seen the girl before. She was the beauty called Wei Wei. As for the young man, he stared at Lin Xian with a flicker of disdain in his eyes. With a sneer, he walked towards Lin Xian. Chapter 163. You're the inscription master that old Xiao and old Bai found? The young man stared at Lin Xian. You don't seem to be much? Lin Xian sighed and ignored him. Instead, he greeted the two elders behind the young man. Greetings, seniors, Lin Xian said with a smile. Little friend Lin, you're here so early, the white-robed elder said with a smile. Kid you. The young man beside him was livid. He originally wanted to intimidate Lin Xian, but he didn't expect Lin Xian to ignore him. I'll let you know that not everyone can enter the 1,000 Treasure Tower. The young man roared in his heart. Lin Xian sneered in his heart. He didn't want to fight with these people. What he wanted most now was to reach the snow-seeking sect. There's no time to lose. Let's go, the red-robed elder said. The few of them walked out of the 1,000 Treasure Tower. Lin Xian looked at the two chariots in front and was a little surprised. The simple patterns were made of black gold and were the size of a house. The demonic beast pulling the chariot was even more extraordinary. It was actually a four-headed blood dragon horse. This was a powerful fourth-tier demonic beast with the body of a horse and the tail of a dragon. Its entire body was blood red as if it could drip blood. Its blood was vigorous and comparable to a martial artist in the fourth layer of the spiritual ocean tier. This 1,000 Treasure Tower is really generous, Lin Xian praised in his heart. This kind of thing wasn't something that an ordinary force could take out. And this was just the 1,000 Treasure Tower in the ancient city. Lin Xian didn't dare to imagine how powerful the headquarters of the 1,000 Treasure Tower was. 6 people, 2 chariots. The 2 elders and the middle-aged man sat in the front chariot, while Lin Xian and the 2 disciples of the 1,000 Treasure Tower entered the other chariot. Pong! After a moment, there was a sound. The bloody horned dragon horse let out a long neigh and dashed out. Its speed was frightening. Lin Xian estimated that at this speed, they could arrive in about 10 days. It was more than twice as fast as him traveling alone. I'm Wei Wei. This is senior brother Lu Yang. The beautiful woman in the chariot said. There was a lot of space inside. Lin Xian and the other 2 each took a side. Seeing the beauty take the initiative to speak, Lin Xian also cupped his fists and smiled. I am Lin Xian. It is my honor to meet the 2 of you. Humph. The young man snorted. Lin Xian's face darkened slightly. He had never met this Lu Yang fellow, but the latter had always wanted to make things difficult for him. Lin Xian ignored him. Instead, he closed his eyes and began to practice the Great Dragon Sword Seal. These days, as Lin Xian continued to comprehend, he finally understood why the Great Dragon Sword was called an offensive saint art. Fusing everything, evolving everything. With a sword in hand, all techniques could be broken. Lin Xian could now use the mountain-suppressing hand and lion's roar with his longsword, and its power was even stronger than the original version. Coupled with the effect of sword intent, his attack power had increased by leaps and bounds. Seeing Lin Xian closing his eyes, Lu Yang glared at him. He was a disciple of the Myriad Treasure Tower and a first-grade inscription master. He was a strong candidate to participate in the inscription tower. Just a few days ago, he heard that a kid suddenly joined the Myriad Treasure Tower and wanted to participate in the inscription tower competition. This was a threat to his position. The number of people participating in the inscription tower was limited. There would be a preliminary selection at the end, and only the winner could enter. But this kid in front of him could participate directly. How could he not be angry? I want to see what ability you have. Lu Yang clenched his fists. However, Lin Xian never gave him a chance. After getting on the carriage, Lin Xian began to meditate with his eyes closed, comprehending the cultivation method. He did not have the intention to pay attention to the 2 at all. Lu Yang gnashed his teeth in hatred, but there was nothing he could do. He could not directly interrupt Lin Xian. If he did, the elders would not forgive him. The carriage moved forward quickly as if it was flying. The next day, Lin Xian opened his eyes. He had encountered a bottleneck, and it could not be solved by comprehending. Putting down the comprehension of the Great Dragon Sword Seal, He took out a cup of spirit wine and drank it, then began to cultivate the longevity art. A wisp of wine fragrance spread out and floated in the carriage. Vivian and Lu Yong were both inscription masters. After sensing this wine fragrance, their faces changed. Such rich spirit qi. The grade of this spirit wine must be very high. Vivian blinked her big eyes and looked at Lin Xian curiously. At the side, Lu Yang's eyes became even more gloomy. How can this kid have this kind of spirit wine? He could not figure it out and was a little mad. After 2 hours, Lin Xian opened his eyes. The spirit qi in his body was abundant, and he would soon break through to the 3rd level of the spiritual sea realm. At that time, even if he met the Sword Mark youth, he had absolute confidence to defeat him. Junior brother Lin, the grade of your spirit wine must be very high. You didn't refine it yourself, right? Vivian asked with a smile. How could it be? This was refined by my master. Lin Xian shook his head. Since everyone is free, why don't we test what we have learned together? Lu Yong saw the opportunity and hurriedly said, Sure, I happen to have some doubts recently, Vivian said seriously. Junior brother Lin, what about you? Lu Yong asked. Because Lin Xian was the youngest, both of them called him junior brother. Lin Xian smiled lightly. Sure. Lu Yong was overjoyed. As long as Lin Xian dared to agree, he was confident that he could humiliate Lin Xian. In his opinion, Lin Xian was just a young boy. What could he know? Lin Xian sneered in his heart. Of course, he knew Lu Yang's intention, but he was fearless. After practicing for so long, he could take this opportunity to test it out. Then the 3 of them began to discuss, from the initial medicinal materials, pharmacology to the effects and methods. Everything was involved. Lin Xian learned inscription knowledge from Lord Alcohol, so this content was not difficult for him. On the contrary, he could often come up with some unique ideas, which broadened the horizons of the other 2. Vivian's face was flushed red with excitement. She had solved all the problems that had plagued her for days. Lu Yang's face was gloomy. Not only did he not make things difficult for Lin Xian, but he also had some questions that he could not answer. The corner of Lu Yang's mouth twitched slightly as he went crazy. You talk so nicely, but who doesn't know these theories? The key to becoming an inscription master is refining. Do you dare to compete? Lu Yong was furious. He swore that he would humiliate Lin Xian. He guessed that Lin Xian must have a good master to be able to learn such knowledge. However, Lu Yong was not willing to admit defeat. He had the advantage of age. In terms of refining techniques and proficiency, Lin Xian was definitely inferior to him. Sure. Lin Xian was still calm and unhurried. Keep pretending, keep pretending. I'll make you cry in a while. Lu Yong sneered in his heart. He moved his finger and drew an arc in the air. A shining inscription appeared in the air. The whole process was smooth and without a pause. Good technique. Lin Xian smiled. It seemed that Lu Yong had some skills and was not a talkative person. Lin Xian immediately made his move. His finger danced in the air. 3 vortex runes appeared in the air, forming the shape of a triangle, like 3 blooming lotuses. 3 flowers gathering spirit. Lu Yong exclaimed. Lu Yang's eyes were filled with shock. His lips trembled and he was speechless. The 3 lotus-shaped inscriptions rotated in the air, forming a vortex of spirit power. In the carriage in front, the red-robed elder felt the change in spirit power behind him and suddenly opened his eyes. Chapter 164. The old man in the red robe opened his eyes in shock. He slowly spread out his soul power to check the situation behind him. When he saw the 3 flowers gathering spirit drawn by Lin Xian, his eyelids twitched fiercely. This kid is really surprising. The old man in the red robe was full of expectations for the upcoming battle of the inscription tower. In the carriage, Lu Yong kept pinching his thigh to wake himself up from his dream. This can't be real. This can't be real. However, reality was like a basin of cold water that woke him up. Finally, Lu Yong let out a heavy sigh. You win? He finally knew why Lin Xian could directly participate in the inscription tower competition. His method was way beyond theirs. Junior brother Lin, can I ask you a question? Vivian blinked her big eyes and asked. Of course, Senior brother Lu Yang can also participate, Lin Xian said lightly. He was not a narrow-minded person. Lu Yang was taken aback. He gave Lin Xian a deep look. Then, the two began to ask all their questions. Lin Xian answered them one by one in great detail. Lu Yang was shocked. He thought that Lin Xian was just joking. He did not expect that Lin Xian would help them so wholeheartedly. This made him feel a little embarrassed. At this time, the carriage slowed down. Lin Xian opened the window and looked out. Outside, the wind and snow fluttered. The snow was wrapped in silver, and the goose-feather-heavy snow fell from the sky. As far as the eye could see, the whole world seemed to have turned into a monotonous white. "We have entered the snow province." Lu Yang looked out of the window and said, "On the snowy ground, the carriage might be slower." This was relative. Lin Xian estimated that even this speed was faster than him traveling alone. Putting down the curtain, Lin Xian entered the state of cultivation again. Half a day later, the carriage stopped completely. "Let's rest for the night and continue tomorrow," the old man in the red robe said in a deep voice as he looked ahead. Lin Xian and the other two got out of the carriage and suddenly felt a gust of cold wind, as if it was going to freeze them into ice. "Fortunately, I'm wearing a bearskin coat. Otherwise, I would have to use my spiritual energy to protect my body," Lin Xian exclaimed in his heart as he felt the cold air between heaven and earth. Everyone found a place to shelter from the wind and snow, and then pulled the carriage over. Wang, the red-robed old man's hand trembled as he formed a formation that enveloped everyone. Suddenly, the cold wind and snow were all blocked outside. The formation was not supported by manpower. The red-robed old man only needed to place some mid-grade spirit stones, and the formation would automatically defend itself. Everyone tidied up the food and prepared to eat. Most of these people were inscriptionists, so they naturally would not mistreat themselves. The middle-aged man flicked his finger, and a furnace appeared. 2 firebirds were engraved on the furnace, and they were surrounded by raging flames as if they were alive. Bang! The half-meter-tall furnace fell to the ground, causing the earth to tremble. A wave of heat spread out, and everyone felt much warmer. Lu Yang and Vivian began to take out the cut demon beast meat and roast it on the stove. The sky gradually darkened, and the snowstorm outside grew heavier. Moreover, the snow at night was not white, but blue, like crystals. Lin Xian and the others began to rest and busy themselves with their own things. Suddenly, everyone opened their eyes. Among them, the white-robed old man and the middle-aged man were not inscriptionists, but their cultivation was the highest, reaching the 7th sky of the spiritual sea realm. The rest of the people were all spiritual tattooists with powerful soul power. At this moment, all of them frowned. This was because they could sense a powerful force approaching them at a rapid speed. Could it be him? Lin Xian frowned, and the figure of the green-haired man appeared in his mind. "No, there is no evil aura." He quickly denied it. Circulating his soul power, Lin Xian used purple spiritual eyes and looked into the distance. Soon, his pupil shrank, and he stood up. "Wolves!" Lin Xian took a deep breath. The others also sensed it, and they were all shocked. Among them, the white-robed old man said in a deep voice, "This is the Ice Wolves bandits of Snow Province. They are extremely cruel. You must be careful. Can't we escape with the blood dragon carriage?" Lu Yang's voice was trembling. "On the snow, nothing can outrun the snow wolves." The white-robed old man shook his head. Figures appeared beside them. It was a pack of snow wolves, and each of them was more than 2 meters long. Their green eyes were like 2 ghost fires that kept jumping. Behind them, there were more snow wolves approaching, but there were people sitting on those wolves. Huge burly men in animal skin coats stared coldly at Lin Xian and the others with a fierce face. "We are from the 1,000 Treasure Tower. May I know why you are here?" The middle-aged man stood out and said in a deep voice, "Haha, so it's a friend from the 1,000 Treasure Tower. You must know the rules of the Ice Wolves bandits. Leave the horses, money, treasures, and women. The rest can get lost." This group of burly men was very arrogant and did not give face to the 1,000 Treasure Tower. This was a group of lunatics who did not give face to anyone. Even the disciples of the snow-seeking sect were robbed, so there is no room for discussion. The middle-aged man's voice gradually turned cold. They were from the Thousand Treasure Tower, and no one dared to provoke them outside. How could they endure this kind of humiliation? There is nothing to discuss. Brothers, charge. With a command, countless snow wolves pounced. The defensive array buzzed and trembled nonstop. Ripples appeared in the surroundings, and it looked like it was about to shatter. Gather together, don't scatter. Everyone, break through together. The white-robed old man said in a deep voice. Rumble. The defensive array shattered, and the wolf bandits rushed in. Oomph. The middle-aged man attacked mercilessly. An earthy yellow palm that was dozens of meters tall pushed out horizontally. Everywhere it passed, countless blood wolves and bandits turned into a bloody mist. The power of a martial artist at the 7th layer of the spiritual sea realm was extremely terrifying. Let me fight you. An angry voice sounded from behind the wolf bandits. A huge burly man suddenly jumped up, and his long saber slashed down like a rainbow. The saber light that was dozens of meters long cut through the sky and slashed down at the crowd. Air waves rolled on both sides, and the cold wind blew in reverse, whistling nonstop. The middle-aged man threw out a punch to welcome the resplendent saber light and engaged in a fierce battle with the wolf bandit leader. Hee, who wants to play with me? A sinister voice sounded, and another wolf bandit at the 7th layer of the spiritual sea realm walked out, holding a blue long whip in his hand and laughing cruelly. The white-robed old man gave some instructions to the crowd, and then went forward. The battle between 4 martial artists at the 7th layer of the spiritual sea realm was shocking. Just the aftermath of the battle made everyone's heart tremble. Lin Xian and the rest kept retreating. They were already surrounded. Go. With the wolf bandits' command, countless snow wolves pounced forward. Break through them. The crowd didn't want to be separated, but there were too many snow wolves, and they broke through in an instant. Lin Xian pulled out the Autumn Scar sword and attacked. He used the Phantom Thunder Steps and shuttled through the wolf pack, thrusting out his long sword continuously. Every sword took the life of a snow wolf. Every sword was fatal and accurate. Soon, dozens of snow wolves fell beside him, and blood dyed the ground red. Kid, you are looking for death. A loud shout came from the crowd, and a bald man with a huge saber slashed at Lin Xian. Chapter 165. The newcomer was very ferocious. His body was covered in flames, and his spirit energy condensed into a dragon, charging towards Lin Xian. The wild blade slashed down, and the blade light was like starlight, shining in the air. A martial artist in the 4th sky of the spiritual ocean realm. Young friend Lin, be careful. In the distance, the red-robed elder saw this scene and wanted to rush over to help. However, his opponent was very powerful, holding the red-robed elder back. Vivian and Liu Yang were also very anxious, but they were also surrounded by the wolf bandits and couldn't get away for a while. Lin Xian's body moved erratically, and he quickly dodged the star-like blade light. Don't worry, I can handle it. He transmitted his voice to everyone. Hee, kid. You seem to be very important. The bald man sneered. If I kill you, I wonder how sad they will be. This group of wolf bandits was very ferocious, and they took pleasure in killing people. Lin Xian had no sympathy for this kind of people. His eyes became sharp, and his body flashed, creating dozens of illusions. This was the power of the Phantom Thunder Steps when he mastered it. Each of the illusions could be passed off as real, and people couldn't tell the real from the fake. The 2nd sky of the spiritual ocean realm, too weak. Die. The bald man swung his blade, and the blade light that was dozens of meters long slashed out, covering all the illusions around him. Pung 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 pung. With one slash, more than half of the illusions were destroyed. Petty tricks, watch how I kill you with one slash. The bald man laughed loudly. Is that so? A faint voice came from behind the bald man. What? The bald man was shocked. He didn't see when Lin Xian ran behind him. Blade Ring Mountain. The bald man gritted his teeth and roared. Countless streams of saber chi shot out from his body, instantly forming a hazy mountain that stood behind him. At the same time, he quickly turned his body, wanting to cut Lin Xian under his blade. Puff. The bald man was just about to move, but his body suddenly stiffened. The sword tip that was as cold as autumn water pierced through his heart, causing blood to splatter everywhere. No, impossible. How could you break through my defense? The bald man's voice became softer and softer. Finally, his head tilted and he fell to the ground. Until his death, he still didn't believe that a martial artist at the second sky of the spiritual ocean realm could break through his defense. The power of the wind lightning spike is greater than I imagined. Lin Xian took off the bald man's storage ring and charged into the pack of wolves once again. Oh, wolf howls rang out, sounding desolate. Everyone turned around and saw the bald man lying in a pool of blood. What? Guang is dead. Who killed him? The group of wolf bandits fell into a frenzy as they all looked at Lin Xian. It's you. A martial artist in the second sky of the spiritual ocean realm. How is it possible? Countless wolf bandits shouted crazily. In the distance, Lu Yong and Vivian also exclaimed in surprise. They looked at Lin Xian as if they were looking at a monster. Brat, how dare you kill a member of our Ice Wolf regiment? Die. A strong man with 2 hammers in his hands was riding a snow wolf as he quickly rushed over. The green wind under Lin Xian's feet spun, and his body turned into a gust of wind, drifting around. His footwork was unconstrained, and there was no pattern to it. Ding, ding, ding. A series of sparks flew out, followed by the dense sound of metal clashing. Countless sword shadows appeared in front of the strong man, forming a sword curtain. Shocked, he used his hammers to protect himself. At the same time, the snow wolf he was riding on launched an attack. Whoosh, whoosh. Its sharp claws were waving, tearing the air apart as it clawed at Lin Xian. Puff. A shadow was clawed and exploded, turning into spiritual power and disappearing. Lin Xian's real body had already retreated to the back. With a shake of his wrist, several 10-meter-long sword chi shot out. Golden Snake Travel. This was the sword technique used by the Sword Mark Youth, and now it was used by Lin Xian. After comprehending the Great Dragon Sword print, Lin Xian's attack was ever-changing. The sword chi in the air turned into giant pythons, pouncing forward. Oh, the snow wolf that the strong man was riding on roared, spitting out a cloud of icy mist, which was extremely cold. The golden snake formed by the sword chi clashed with the mist, causing an explosion. The horrifying energy spread out in all directions. In the distance, Vivian screamed. Her sleeve had been cut open. The wolf bandit she was fighting against was a perverted man. His beady eyes were staring at Vivian's body. Little beauty, I will let you have your fill in a bit. Ha ha ha. The surrounding wolf bandits also laughed maniacally. Shoo. He waved the red spiritual whip in his hand again, drawing a weird arc in the air and tearing Vivian's dress apart. Vivian was terrified as she screamed and kept retreating. Kid, all of you have to die. The strong man stared at Lin Xian and grinned. Humph. Lin Xian snorted coldly. His sword intent surged, and the aura on his body became extremely cold. Shoo. His body turned into a beam of lightning as he flew out quickly, approaching the strong man instantly. The autumn scar sword was pulled out quickly, and a dragon roar was heard. Who? A golden sword light flashed, lighting up half of the sky. Who? Lin Xian flashed his body, passing through the strong man and running toward Vivian. Behind him, the strong man raised both of his hammers in the air, and his pupils gradually enlarged. All of a sudden, a trace of blood appeared in between his eyebrows, and then blood poured out. Boom. His entire body, along with the snow wolf he was riding on, died instantly. His body was split in half, and he fell onto the ground. Wind style. The air moved, and a sword light suddenly flew out from behind the perverted man. The perverted man who was flirting with Vivian suddenly changed his expression. He released his spirit power, forming a spirit power armor. Boom. The sword light landed on the armor, tearing open a horrifying crack. Hee hee, you can't break it. Before he could finish, the sword light flashed again, and a golden sword light surged, attacking like lightning. Pooh! The perverted man's head flew into the air and was thrown far away. The surrounding wolf bandits all backed off crazily, their eyes filled with fear. Thank Thank you, Vivian said while trembling. Here. Lin Xian took off his white bear coat and threw it to Vivian. Then, he turned around and roared at the wolf pack that was running toward him. Mad lion roar. The sound wave vibrated, and with Lin Xian as the center, it quickly spread out. Within the formless sound wave, there was a sharp sword intent, forming a horrifying killing move. Pooh, pooh, pooh. All the snow wolves and wolf bandits that came in contact with the sound wave had their bodies split open, as if they had been pierced by thousands of swords. However, it was not over yet. Lin Xian flashed again and arrived near Liu Yang. Junior brother Lin. Liu Yang's face was filled with joy. He had seen Lin Xian's attack just now. As long as Lin Xian made a move, his life would be saved. Shoo! Lin Xian's body flashed, and he arrived beside Liu Yang, pulling out his autumn scar sword. Wind Thunder Sword Wave. This move was a sword skill that he had created by imitating the Mad Lion roar. Originally, with his strength, he would not be able to create a sword skill. But with the Great Dragon sword print, everything became possible. With Lin Xian as the center, a ring-shaped sword pattern rippled in all directions. Ripples appeared in the air, spreading out like water ripples. From afar, it looked like a golden ripple. Everything that came in contact with it was cut in half. As the sword was waved out, silence reigned. Dozens of snow wolves and wolf bandits were killed at the same time. Their bodies were cut in half, twitching nonstop. Chapter 166. Lin Xian brought Liu Yang back to Wei Wei's side, and then he looked at the battlefield in the distance. Two of the battles were between martial artists at the 7th level of the spiritual ocean realm, and he could not get close to them. The other one was where the elder in red was fighting. He was fighting against 3 martial artists at the 5th level of the spiritual ocean realm, and the battle was extremely intense. Some of the snow wolves were fighting against the 2 bloody dragon horses, while the rest of the bandits were rushing towards Lin Xian and the others. Save the bloody dragon horses first, then help the elder in red. Lin Xian made up his mind. Holding the autumn scar sword, he turned into a flash of lightning and rushed up. At the same time, at the border of the snow province, a blue-haired man appeared out of nowhere. He slightly closed his eyes, as if he was sensing something. After a while, he suddenly opened his eyes, and a wicked smile appeared on his face. His body shook, and the blue-haired man disappeared from where he was standing. On the snowy land, the cold wind was blowing. Lin Xian's body was like a ghost as he shuttled between the snow wolves and the bandits. The long sword in his hand was stabbing out at an even faster speed. Pooh! Pooh! Blood splashed everywhere, and bodies fell down one after another. The bandits backed off in fear. That seemingly random sword would take away a life every time. This was no longer a battle, but a harvest. Yes, a harvest. Lin Xian was like a harvester, harvesting their lives mercilessly. These people all had the urge to curse in their minds. They were the bandits, okay? And now, their identities seemed to have been switched. The prey had become the killer, and they could only run. Wind-splitting movement. The sword light shone, and the air seemed to have been torn apart. The dozens of people in the front were torn apart by this power, turning into minced meat. Lin Xian came to the front of the bloody dragon horse and killed the snow wolves around it. The 2 bloody dragon horses were covered in blood, with horrifying wounds on their bodies. One of them could not hold on any longer and was about to die. Lin Xian sighed and threw all the demon crystals in the snow wolves' bodies to them. Then, his body shook, and he ran towards the elder in red. You are looking for death. The 3 men besieging the red-robed elder had long noticed Lin Xian's presence. However, in their opinion, killing the red-robed elder was more important. And now, Lin Xian was running towards them. How could these people not be angry? Die. A one-eyed man wielding a long spear turned around and thrust his spear at Lin Xian. The space shook. The spear light of the spear was Lin Xian was piercing towards Lin. This one-eyed man's strength had reached the peak of the 4th layer of the spiritual ocean tier, which was similar to the young man of Swordmark. If it was a few days, or not, Xian days, it was Lin Xian's. But now he was. The spiritual energy in his body surged, and Lin Xian's speed suddenly exploded as he flew to the side. Boom! The thick Lin Xian of the dragon and the martial. Lin Xian's eyes flashed as he continued to observe with his purple spirit eyes. At the same time, his sword will gushed out, raising his combat strength to the maximum. Sword intent. The one-eyed man was shocked. No wonder you can kill so many people. You are a genius who has comprehended sword intent. Then I can't let you live. The one-eyed man gave up on the elder in red and rushed towards Lin Xian. After knowing Lin Xian's strength, the elder in red didn't worry too much. He attacked the two people in front of him with all his strength. But when Wei Wei and Lu Yang saw this, their hearts skipped a beat. That was a martial artist close to the fifth sky of the spiritual ocean realm. Could Lin Xian really deal with him? They couldn't help, so they could only watch from afar. Sweep the world. The one-eyed man held the spear in one hand and swept it out. The blue Lin Xian of formed a violent storm. Whoosh, whoosh. Everywhere it passed, a thick layer of frost was formed, emitting a horrifying chill. Ice attribute. Lin Xian's pupil shrank, and he kept retreating. In this world of ice and snow, ice attribute martial artists could definitely explode with super powerful battle power. No wonder this person is only at the fourth sky of the spiritual ocean realm and can participate in the attack on the elder in red. Lin Xian's face was serious. The elder in red had the cultivation of the sixth sky of the spiritual ocean realm. Kid, in here, my attack power is equivalent to a martial artist in the fifth sky of the spiritual ocean realm. You can die in peace. Lin Xian didn't dare to be careless. This one-eyed man's strength was beyond his expectations. Ice attribute martial artists had the ability to slow down and cause frostbite. If he was hit, it would only get worse. Thinking of this, his whole body released golden lightning, as if he was the god of thunder. It's useless. The one-eyed man sneered, and the long spear in his hand kept stabbing out. Wong, wong, wong. Every spear was filled with the power of ice, resonating with the surrounding heaven and earth. The cold air in the surroundings quickly condensed and gathered on top of the spear, forming a huge ice pillar. Boom! Lin Xian held his sword and flicked it upwards. The autumn scar sword was like a golden lightning, cutting the huge ice pillar in half. As expected of the sword intent, it is indeed sharp. The one-eyed man sneered, and his left hand grasped in the air, piercing ice spear. The cold air on the ground surged, forming a blue ice spear under Lin Xian's feet, and suddenly pierced out. Lin Xian's body flashed, leaving behind a shadow while his real body escaped into the distance. Shoo! 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 After the ice spear pierced through Lin Xian's shadow, it didn't stop there, but shot out like an arrow. At the same time, the one-eyed man stomped his feet, and the whole ice surface started to shake. Welcome to the ice prison. Pong, pong. The ice surface shattered, and two huge ice hands grabbed onto Lin Xian's feet. The horrifying cold air rushed into his body. Cut! Hundreds of sword chi shot out from Lin Xian's body, tearing the ice apart. He stabbed out with his sword, which clashed right onto the tip of the ice spear. With a twist of his wrist, the autumn scar sword formed a whirlpool, shattering the ice spear. Kid, you're pretty good. Why don't you join our ice snow group? The one-eyed man yelled. Sorry, I'm not interested. Lin Xian's pupils turned purple. This was the sign of his purple spirit eyes being pushed to the extreme. What last words do you have? Say them. What? The one-eyed man froze for a moment, then laughed out loud. Kid, is your brain frozen? In this ice world, you can't even get close to me, not to mention killing me. The one-eyed man's face was full of disdain. Really? Lin Xian's lips curled up, piercing ice spear. You think you can just shout and it will appear? This is an ice elemental martial art. The one-eyed man was even more disdainful. He even thought that Lin Xian was an idiot. However, in the next moment, his face changed drastically. A dangerous aura came from under his feet, as if it was going to tear the ground apart. Impossible! The one-eyed man almost roared out. Although he didn't believe it, he still retreated quickly. In the distance, Vivian and Lu Yang were shocked. Could it be that Lin Xian really knew ice elemental martial arts? But he was obviously a thunder elemental martial artist. The two of them were very confused, but they could only watch carefully. Seeing the one-eyed man retreat, Lin Xian smiled. "Welcome to the Ice Snow Prison." These words were exactly the same as what the one-eyed man said. Even the tone was the same. "Kid, you're looking for death. Do you believe that I won't tear you apart?" The one-eyed man was very angry. He thought that Lin Xian was playing with him, but soon he realized that he was wrong. The ground suddenly split open, and two large golden hands firmly grasped his feet. Chapter 167. Two large golden hands reached out from the ice and firmly grabbed the one-eyed man's feet. This scene was very familiar. Not long ago, the one-eyed man had used the same martial art on Lin Xian, and now Lin Xian was returning it to him. Impossible. This is impossible. How can you know an ice element martial art? The one-eyed man yelled crazily with a trace of madness in his eyes. Ice element martial art? In the distance, Lu Yang and Wei Wei both had strange expressions. Junior brother Lin is using thunder. Why did the man say it was an ice element martial art? Could it be that the man was scared stiff? The two were confused. Lu Yang looked at the one-eyed man carefully, and his pupils suddenly shrank. "Look at his eyes," Lu Yang whispered to Wei Wei. Vivian also let loose a cry of surprise upon seeing this. The one-eyed man's undamaged eye was now purple, as if it was a dream or an illusion. Is this a mental illusion? Lu Yang took a deep breath. How powerful is junior brother Lin's soul power? In the distance, on the battlefield, Lin Xian's lips curled up. He had indeed used thunder to simulate the previous scene. However, he had secretly used his purple spirit eyes to hypnotize the one-eyed man. In the one-eyed man's eyes, the ice spear was blue in color, and the spiritual hands that had trapped him were also ice element martial arts. He had completely lost himself in the illusion. Boom! Lin Xian stomped his foot on the ground and dashed forward. In a flash, he had arrived in front of the one-eyed man and pulled out the autumn scar sword in his hand. One-eyed! A loud yell came from behind. It was like thunder, exploding in the air. The one-eyed man's body shook, and he recovered from the illusion. At this moment, a sword light flashed and enveloped him. As an ice element martial artist, the one-eyed man exploded with a powerful force at the last moment. A huge ice wall rose from the ground and blocked in front of him. At the same time, rows of ice spikes shot towards Lin Xian. Chi! Chi! The sword light flashed and cut everything in half. The one-eyed man retreated as fast as he could, but he was still one step too late. His left arm was cut off by the sword Chi, and blood flowed out. Golden electric arcs exploded at the wound, producing a terrifying destructive power. Freeze! The one-eyed man crazily circulated his spirit energy and sealed half of his body. A layer of blue ice continued to spread and froze the wound. It continued to extend and form an ice soul left hand. "Brat, I'm going to tear you to shreds. No one can save you." The one-eyed man's voice was cold, and his eyes were like a demon's. The ice around him shattered, turning into pieces of icicles that floated around him. He was infuriated to the extreme. The one-eyed man had never suffered such a loss before, and his opponent was actually only a brat at the second layer of the spiritual ocean realm. "You think you still have a chance to live?" Lin Xian sneered, the purple light in his eyes flashing again. An invisible soul power rushed out and directly attacked the one-eyed man's soul. For a moment, the one-eyed man held his head and screamed. Whoosh! The autumn scar sword slashed out once again. The air was sliced open as the sword Chi of wind and thunder turned into a long dragon, piercing towards the one-eyed man's heart. Puff! The sharp edge of the sword sliced through the spirit energy armor, sliced open the inner armor, and pierced into his heart. Plop! The cold body fell down. Lin Xian waved his hand and took away the one-eyed man's storage ring. In the distance, Lu Yang and Wei Wei were shocked. The two bandits that were attacking the red-robed elder roared in anger. Even the martial artists at the seventh layer of the spiritual ocean realm in the distance noticed the situation here. Boom! One of the bandits at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean realm threw out a blade light at Lin Xian. The blade chi swept across the sky. The 10-meter-long blade chi was like a long rainbow as it slashed down. Lin Xian's pupils shrank as he quickly ran away. Rumble. As the blade chi fell, a horrifying crack appeared on the ground, spreading into the distance. Lin Xian's face was a bit pale. Although he didn't touch the blade chi, the wind brought about by it still made his chest feel stuffy. This was the power of the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean realm. It was far from what a 4th or 5th layer martial artist could compare to. Fortunately, the bandit leader only slashed out once before he was entangled by the middle-aged man from the 1,000 Treasures Tower and couldn't attack again. Lin Xian let out a sigh of relief. He still couldn't resist a martial artist at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean realm. However, before he could relax, a strong sense of danger surged into his heart again. It was as if a cold and greedy gaze appeared behind him. Lin Xian's scalp went numb, and all the muscles in his body tightened. He spread out his soul power and looked around cautiously. Needless to say, the one who could give him this feeling was definitely the mysterious green-haired man. As expected, in the distant horizon, a figure quickly flew over. The snow on the ground quickly scattered to the sides, and a deep trench appeared on the ice, spreading towards Lin Xian. Who? In a moment, the green-haired man arrived nearby. A cold and dark aura quickly spread out in all directions, making people tremble uncontrollably. Pong, pong, pong. The two sides that were fighting stopped and looked at the green-haired man in the field with vigilance. Lin Xian's body stiffened. He secretly circulated his spirit power to the extreme, and at the same time prepared the bronze gauntlet and the yellowed talisman treasure. As long as the situation wasn't right, he would immediately attack with all his strength. The feeling the green-haired man gave him was even more terrifying than a martial artist at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean realm. This wasn't the suppression of spirit power, but the throbbing of the soul. The green-haired man took a deep look at Lin Xian, and his green eyes emitted light. He didn't attack immediately, but picked up the one-eyed man's corpse on the ground. Gotcha! He bit the one-eyed man's corpse and kept sucking. In the blink of an eye, the blood essence in the one-eyed man's body was quickly drained, and he finally became a dry corpse. Plop! The green-haired man threw the one-eyed man aside, and then looked for the corpse on the ground again. Whoosh! Whoosh! The three experts from the 1,000 Treasures Tower came to Lin Xian's side and protected him. Lu Yang and Wei Wei also ran over, looking at the green-haired man with fear. Who? 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 The green-haired man's hair shook, and his 3,000 strands of black hair quickly became thick and long, spreading out in all directions. The ends of the hair transformed into green snakes, which were ferocious and terrifying, and pounced on the corpses on the ground. Puff, puff. The sky full of green hair flew, and all of them pierced into the corpses around, and began to crazily absorb the blood essence. How dare you touch the corpses of my ice wolf pack? You're courting death. The two wolf bandit leaders at the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean realm were furious and attacked one after another. A saber light that was dozens of meters long quickly slashed out, cutting the air into two halves. The other person waved his spirit whip, which turned into a dragon in the air, and pounced over with bared fangs and brandished claws. The green-haired man smiled cruelly and reached out with both hands. Two green lights flickered, condensing into a bronze coffin in the air, suppressing the surroundings. Boom, boom, boom. The three energies collided, and a shocking destructive aura erupted. A green-black mushroom cloud rose, followed by a terrifying energy ripple that spread out in all directions. Retreat. The middle-aged man and the white-robed elder led Lin Xian and the others, turning into a bolt of lightning and retreating quickly. Whoosh! Dozens of strands of green hair shot out from the explosion, attacking Lin Xian. Chapter 168. Black strands of hair rushed towards Lin Xian in a frenzy, piercing through the void. The middle-aged man and the white-robed elder attacked together, releasing a vast amount of energy to block the strands of hair. Pooh, pooh, pooh. Like a piece of cloth being torn apart, the protective light screen was penetrated. The 3,000 strands of hair turned into sharp swords and pierced straight towards them. Seniors, I need to borrow your strength. At the critical moment, Lin Xian shouted. The ancient armor on his body shone brightly, and an illusory shadow appeared with complicated inscriptions on it. The middle-aged man and the white-robed elder looked at Lin Xian in surprise, then injected their spirit power into the armor shadow. Wang. After receiving the power of 2 martial artists at the 7th sky of the spiritual ocean realm, the ancient armor shone brightly. The materialized shadow continued to spread, finally forming a bell-shaped defense that enveloped everyone. Clang, clang, clang. The strands of hair collided with the bell-shaped defense shadow, producing a clang. Although they didn't penetrate the bell-shaped defense, the huge impact still sent everyone flying far away. We're saved. The few of them landed on the ground, feeling like they had just survived a disaster. Lin Xian frowned deeply. The strength of the green-haired man was beyond his imagination. If he had acted alone, it would have been dangerous. However, before Lin Xian and the others could relax, the strands of hair turned into spiritual snakes and attacked again. From the sky to the ground, from all directions, they pounced on Lin Xian and the others. They had no choice but to work together and form the bell-shaped defense again. Suddenly, Lin Xian's heart skipped a beat. He sensed that the mysterious green egg in his storage ring was shaking more and more violently. Is it going to crack? Lin Xian was puzzled. Xiao Xuanzi, I have a way to suppress that person, but it's too dangerous, Lord Alcohol transmitted. No matter what, we have to try. Lin Xian gritted his teeth and said. He didn't want to live in danger all the time. After making his decision, Lin Xian prepared to take action. Seniors, you all go first. Lin Xian instructed before rushing forward. His speed reached an extreme, leaving behind a trail of light in the air. Lin Xian quickly took out the green egg and held it in his arms. Whoosh, whoosh. The 3,000 strands of black hair sensed the aura of the green egg and turned into a square midway, abandoning the 1,000 treasure tower and the others, all charging towards Lin Xian. The expressions of the white-robed elder and company changed. They saw that Lin Xian was about to be pierced, but they were powerless to do anything. Phantom Thunder Step? Lin Xian shouted in a low voice. His body turned into hundreds of light shadows and scattered in all directions. For a moment, the sky and the ground were filled with Lin Xian's illusions. Puff, puff. The 3,000 strands of black hair were like long spears, piercing through these afterimages at lightning speed. Lin Xian's true body quickly approached the azure-haired man. He wanted to use Lord Alcohol's powers to seal the azure-haired man. 500 meters, 300 meters, 100 meters. Lin Xian's figure flashed continuously, and finally, he was only 10 meters away from the azure-haired man. A black vortex appeared out of thin air in front of him. It spun rapidly and emitted a devouring force. At that moment, the green egg in Lin Xian's arms emitted a cracking sound. The eggshell cracked open, and a furry little thing crawled out. It was only the size of a palm, and its body was covered in snow-white fur as it curled up. A gust of cold wind blew past as the little thing opened its eyes in a daze. Its big black eyes were like black gemstones as they shimmered with light. Wuji, Wuji. The little thing called out to the two in a daze before grabbing Lin Xian's clothes and crawling. Lin Xian was stunned. The azure-haired man opposite him was also stunned. Inside the mysterious sword, Lord Alcohol exclaimed softly and stopped moving. The black vortex in front of him became smaller and smaller before disappearing into the air. Lin Xian stared blankly at the palm-sized monkey in his arms as his brain short-circuited. A monkey can appear from the green egg? Lin Xian realized that his outlook on life had collapsed. The snow-white monkey clung tightly to Lin Xian as it emitted woojeeb sounds. It was extremely adorable. Looking at the snow-white monkey, Lin Xian recalled the few monkeys that had given him the green egg. These monkeys looked similar, but Lin Xian's was smaller. Rubbing his head, Lin Xian cautiously looked at the azure-haired man in front of him. The azure-haired man looked at the snow-white monkey with a puzzled expression, but more than that, he felt fear. He's actually afraid of this monkey? Lin Xian was greatly surprised. The snow-white monkey seemed to sense the azure-haired man's gaze as it slowly turned its head. One of its paws grabbed Lin Xian's clothes, while the other grabbed onto its eyelids. It made a face at the azure-haired man. So, a green light flashed by, bringing with it a gust of wind. The azure-haired man in front of him seemed to have seen something terrifying as he immediately fled. That kind of speed made one stunned. Lin Xian took a deep breath as he stared blankly at the little thing in his arms. All along, he thought that the azure-haired man treated the green egg as life essence and wanted to seize it. But today's situation made him change his mind. The azure-haired man was scared away. This kind of thing was too inconceivable. So. Figures quickly rushed over from afar. Lin Xian put away the broken eggshell and let out a sigh of relief. "Are you all right?" The red-robed old man and the others asked in concern. Lin Xian shook his head. "Thank you, seniors, for your concern. I'm fine." "Where's that person?" Lu Yang asked with lingering fear. "Gone." Lin Xian let out a breath and said fiercely. Hearing this, they all let out a sigh of relief. Among them, the middle-aged man and the white-robed old man looked to the side. There, two wolf bandit leaders in the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean tier stood awkwardly with wounds of various sizes on their bodies. Around them, there were countless corpses, some of which had already dried up. The two wolf bandits glared fiercely at Lin Xian and the others, then quickly left. The cold wind whistled and snow fell. The surroundings became silent again. There was a faint smell of blood in the air, reminding everyone of what had just happened. Wuji! Wuji! The snow-white little monkey hung on Lin Xian's body and cried pitifully. What a cute little monkey! Vivian saw it and forgot the fear in her heart. "Can I hug it?" Vivian's eyes were twinkling. Lin Xian was stunned and nodded blankly. Vivian picked up the little monkey with a smile on her face. "Old Bai, what should we do now?" Lu Yang asked. They couldn't do it here. The smell of blood would attract some demonic beasts in the ice field. Everyone came to the chariot and found that the injured bloody dragon horse was already dead. The other one knelt on the ground and kept whining. "Without the bloody dragon horse, our speed will be much slower," the red-robed old man said with a frown. "If you want to find someone to pull the chariot, I might have a way." Lin Xian touched his chin and said. Everyone turned to look at Lin Xian. Now, no one could ignore Lin Xian's opinion. His previous performance was too stunning, and everyone was stunned. "I might be able to tame a few snow wolves and let them replace the bloody dragon horse." The red-robed old man and the middle-aged man looked at Lin Xian in surprise, not believing him. Although inscription masters had strong soul power, they were not beast tamers. Without special techniques, they couldn't tame demonic beasts. Could Lin Xian be a beast tamer? They all had strange expressions. Chapter 169. The red-robed elder and the other two were suspicious, but Lu Yang and Vivian exclaimed, "Yes, junior brother Lin knows illusions. He can definitely tame the snow wolves." Lu Yang shouted. Lu Yang then told them about the battle between Lin Xian and the one-eyed man. "If that's the case, we can give it a try," the white-robed elder said. After that, Lin Xian and the others caught a few snow wolves and let Lin Xian try taming them. Purple light flickered in his eyes, and an invisible soul spirit seeped into the snow wolves' minds. When the purple spirit eyes reached the 3rd level, it was possible to use a secret technique that could control souls. With the help of the great dragon sword seal, Lin Xian quickly placed a slave seal in the snow wolves' minds. The snow wolves were tamed by Lin Xian, and they surrounded Lin Xian, wagging their tails. They were amazed, and their understanding of Lin Xian increased again. With the snow wolves, the carriage's speed increased, and it only took them 5 days to reach Ice Snow City. Lin Xian sat in the carriage with his eyes closed, and the little white monkey was lying on his shoulder. Lu Yang and Vivian were injured, and they were also quietly recovering. Lin Xian was the first to wake up. He spread his soul power into the storage ring and began to tidy up the spoils of war. Most of the storage rings were filled with spirit stones, elixirs, weapons, and martial arts, but Lin Xian didn't care about them. After a quick calculation, there were about 200,000 low-grade spirit stones and some recovery elixirs. After putting away the storage rings, Lin Xian took out a blue ring, which was the one-eyed man's storage ring. I wonder if there are any ice martial arts? Lin Xian was looking forward to it. Using his soul power, Lin Xian sensed an independent space the size of a room. There were 5 big boxes, and all of them were filled with low-grade spirit stones. Lin Xian sensed that there were about 100,000 spirit stones in each box, and there were a total of 500,000 low-grade spirit stones. Lin Xian sighed. The one-eyed man's identity must be extraordinary. In addition to the low-grade spirit stones, there was also a box of mid-grade spirit stones, about 10,000 pieces. Lin Xian secretly swallowed his saliva, feeling a surge of excitement in his heart. Mid-grade spirit stones were much more precious than low-grade spirit stones. 1 mid-grade spirit stone could be exchanged for 100 low-grade spirit stones. However, under normal circumstances, no martial artist would exchange mid-grade spirit stones for low-grade spirit stones. Spirit stones contained in mid-grade spirit stones were relatively pure spirit stones. Not only Spirit Sea Realm martial artists could absorb it, but also martial artists of the 3 spirit realms. Although they still had to be refined, it was still much better than low-grade spirit stones. Therefore, the value of the 5 boxes was much higher than the 5 boxes of low-grade spirit stones. These bandits must have killed a lot of people after robbing so much wealth. I'm doing the people a favor. Lin Xian shook his head and sighed. Plundering was indeed the fastest way to gather wealth. There were also other things, other martial arts, martial arts, martial arts, and Linzer's is and He Shui's. He Xian Zin. Found it. Lin Xian's eyes lit up as he stared at a cultivation technique manual. Ice Snow Mystic Art. It's actually a low-grade spirit tier art. Lin Xian was surprised. He didn't expect the one-eyed man's art to be so high level. Luckily, I have purple spirit pupil and can use illusions. Otherwise, it would definitely be a fierce battle. Lin Xian was right. Although the one-eyed man's cultivation was at the peak of the 4th layer of the Spirit Sea Realm, he wasn't weak at all compared to martial artists at the 5th layer of the Spirit Sea Realm. Especially in this world of ice and snow, normal martial artists at the 5th layer of the Spirit Sea Realm wouldn't dare to provoke him. This was a martial art for cultivating spirit power. Although Lin Xian couldn't cultivate it, he could get inspiration from it. He had the Great Dragon Sword Seal and could completely evolve it. Moreover, the art of longevity he cultivated was even more extraordinary and could transform into any attribute. Memorizing the Ice Snow Mystic Art, Lin Xian followed the instructions and circulated his spirit power. A wisp of cold air overflowed from his palm. He placed his hand on the chair he was sitting on, and instantly, a layer of frost spread at a speed visible to the naked eye. The snow-white little monkey shook its body and curled into a ball, lying on Lin Xian's shoulder. Lu Yong and Wei Wei were also awakened by the cold air and looked around in bewilderment. Finally, Lu Yong pulled the curtains tight to prevent the wind and snow from coming in, and then closed his eyes to adjust his breathing again. Lin Xian didn't say anything, but continued to comprehend the Great Dragon Sword Seal, and at the same time, quicken his familiarity with the Ice Attribute martial art. With the Ice Attribute martial art, his battle strength could be improved again. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, 4 days had passed. During this time, Lin Xian's cultivation broke through again, reaching the 3rd layer of the Spirit Sea Realm. Compared to Lin Xian's terrifying attacks, his cultivation didn't attract the attention of others. However, if they knew that Lin Xian only used a little more than a month to go from the 2nd layer of the Spirit Sea Realm to the 3rd layer of the Spirit Sea Realm, their hearts would probably jump out. As everyone knew, the higher one's cultivation was, the harder it was to improve. A normal martial artist would need about a year to go from the 2nd layer of the Spirit Sea Realm to the 3rd layer of the Spirit Sea Realm. Of course, if one's cultivation method was high level or had the help of medicinal pills, this time could be cut in half. However, no one could be like Lin Xian, who only used a little more than a month. Seeing that they were about to arrive at Ice Snow City, Lin Xian didn't comprehend other martial arts, but worked hard to consolidate his own realm, allowing his body to quickly adapt to the cultivation. After a day, he opened his eyes. Outside the carriage, the snow wolves slowed down. Lin Xian opened the window and looked ahead. A huge black shadow appeared in front of him, like a huge mountain, occupying the land of ice and snow. That's Ice Snow City, the largest city in the Snow Province, and also the city closest to the snow-seeking sect, Wei Wei said, looking into the distance. The two carriages moved slowly and gradually arrived at the city gate. Two black iron gates, more than 10 meters tall, were emitting a cold light. Two rows of guards stood on both sides of the gate. Their auras were powerful, and there was a faint murderous aura. Lin Xian was surprised. The cultivation of these guards were all above the Spirit Sea realm, which was far from what the cities in the Cloud Province could compare with. After paying the spirit stones, Lin Xian and the others entered the city. The streets in the city were very wide, more than 10 meters wide, and there were countless shops on both sides. Although the weather was cold, the city was full of life. Hawkers could be heard everywhere, and most of them were selling delicious food. As pedestrians walked by, the tempting aroma hit their noses. Lin Xian and the others' carriages moved slowly on the street. 6 snow wolves led the way in front, looking mighty and extraordinary. Which force is this, to be able to tame snow wolves? A martial artist was surprised. All the martial artists in the Snow Province knew that snow wolves were demonic beasts that were very difficult to tame. Other than the Ice Wolves bandits, very few people could tame them. And now, someone was using snow wolves to pull a carriage. Under the envious gazes of the crowd, the two carriages drove into the distance. Someone went to the battle stage. Just as the crowd was envious of the snow wolves pulling the carriage, a martial artist shouted from afar. Immediately, the surrounding martial artists all moved and rushed inside. Lin Xian and the others were curious, so they got off the carriage and asked, "Brother, what happened?" Wei Wei asked. When the martial artist saw that it was a beauty, he laughed and said, "You guys just entered the city, right? A large number of martial artists have entered the city these days, and there are often competitions. This time, it's said that the geniuses on the hidden dragon list are going to fight." The martial artist said and left in a hurry. "Let's go and take a look," Wei Wei said excitedly. Chapter 170. Lin Xian and the rest of the young people were quite excited about the Hidden Dragon Rolls competition. They came to the 1,000 Treasure Tower stronghold in Ice Snow City. Lin Xian and the other two went to the battle stage in the city. There was no need to ask anyone. They just had to follow the crowd. Ice Snow City was huge. They walked for a long time before arriving. There was an arena that was dozens of meters long in front of them. It was crowded with people, and there were cheers from time to time. Lin Xian and the other two were in the crowd and looked at the arena. There were two martial artists fighting fiercely on the arena. The vast spiritual power vibrated, and the momentum was shocking. Both of them were experts on the Hidden Dragon Roll. They had all kinds of unique skills. It could be said that it was a fierce battle. Until the end of the battle, the crowd was still not satisfied. Lin Xian also had some gains. He had a new understanding of some martial arts. After the two of them left the arena, another person quickly went up. It was a skinny young man. His eyes were as sharp as a knife. "Song Bao, it's Song Bao!" Someone in the crowd exclaimed. Lin Xian squinted his eyes and looked at the skinny young man. He knew this person. He was a disciple of the Tsang family in Guangning City. He was Tsang Lei's brother and the top expert in Guangning City. Whoosh! Another figure went up the arena. It was a young man with a pale face. "Let me see how strong you are," the young man said. "Tong Chun, you're no match for me." Song Bao's voice was cold with a trace of contempt. "We'll know after we fight." Tong Chin's eyes shone. "Tong Chun, it's him? His injuries have healed." Some of the surrounding martial artists cried out in surprise. Many martial artists knew the geniuses on the Hidden Dragon Roll very well. Those who did not know quickly found out about the feud between the two after asking around. Suddenly, many people were very excited. This was a fated battle. A sick person dares to fight with my brother? He's courting death. In the crowd, Tsang Lei sneered. The disciples of the Tsang family behind him also booed and hooted. On the other side, the disciples of the Tong family did not dare to show weakness and retaliated. "Fight! Fight! Fight!" The surrounding cultivators shouted one after another. Their voices were like a tide, causing the void to tremble. In a pavilion far away, some of the older generation members of some forces were also paying attention. The elders of the Tsang family looked at the battle stage with proud smiles on their faces. Bao Er's cultivation has improved again, and he has reached the 5th level of the 7-layered Thunderblade. He already has the power to be ranked in the top 40 of the Hidden Dragon rank. Tong Chun can't compete with him. It would be best if we could heavily injure that brat from the Tong clan and break the Tong clan's hopes. A bearded elder snorted. In another direction, the elders of the Tong clan were also watching. Chun Er's body has just recovered. I'm afraid it will be a little difficult for him to make a move now. Many elders were worried. The head of the Tong family sighed. Chun Er has been bedridden for half a year and has long been dissatisfied. How could he let go of this opportunity? I hope Chun Er can win. The elder of the Tong family prayed in his heart. On the battle stage, Song Bao sneered. We're no longer on the same level. Since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. After saying that, he stomped his foot and a powerful force burst out from his body. Blue lightning flashed, and spiritual power swept out in all directions like lightning. Song Bao's presence was much stronger than Song Lei's, and he was at the late stage of the 4th level of the spiritual ocean realm. Another thunder element martial artist. Lin Xian's eyes flashed as he used his purple spirit eyes and looked at the stage. Take one of my attacks. Song Bao shouted as the long blade in his hand slashed out like lightning. Like thousands of lightning bolts, the 10-meter-long blade light turned into blue lightning and struck down. Star Scar Sword Art. Tong Chin's pale hand moved quickly, and the long sword formed a starry curtain in the air, which was extremely bright. Rumble. The blade chi slashed on the starry curtain and made a rumbling sound. Ripples appeared on the colorful starry curtain, as if it would break at any time. Luckily, the starry curtain successfully blocked the blade light. Since the first attack failed, Song Bao attacked again, and Tong Chun also counterattacked fiercely. The blade light was like lightning, and the sword chi was like stars. The spiritual power in the air shook, and the rumbling sound was endless. The two speed was extremely fast, leaving behind afterimages on the stage. Some of the weaker martial artists couldn't even see their movements clearly, and only a few could keep up with them. Lin Xian's eyes flashed purple as he saw the two's movements clearly. He sighed slightly. Tong Chun is going to lose. Lu Yong and Wei Wei's soul power was extraordinary, so they could see the situation clearly. Wei Wei was confused, but I think they are evenly matched. Yeah, at least Tong Chun is not losing at all. Lu Yong was also confused. Some of the nearby martial artists heard Lin Xian's words and turned around. When they saw Lin Xian's cultivation at the 3rd sky of the spiritual ocean realm, they all shook their heads and sneered. How could a martial artist at the 3rd sky of the spiritual ocean realm understand the situation on the stage? He probably couldn't even see the two's movements clearly. Kid, don't talk nonsense if you don't understand. Can you see the situation on the stage clearly? Yeah, even we can't see it. What can you see? The martial artists all laughed. Humph. Lu Yang snorted and looked at the crowd with an unfriendly expression. He slowly spread out his soul power. A faint pressure appeared in the air. The crowd trembled and felt an indescribable pressure. Forget it. Lin Xian waved his hand. Lu Yang glanced at the crowd again and withdrew his soul power. So scary. What just happened? Why do I feel like my body is trembling? Some of the martial artists looked at Lu Yang in fear. They had never cultivated soul power, so they were naturally no match for Lu Yang. However, what made them even more terrified was that this person who made their hearts palpitate actually listened to a martial artist at the 3rd sky of the spiritual ocean realm. And this martial artist, they were just laughing at him. Who the hell is this kid? The crowd looked at Lin Xian and felt a chill down their spine. Lin Xian ignored the crowd and said indifferently, one is attacking and the other is retreating. Tong Chen's aura is weaker than his. Plus, he has been suppressed for a long time. I'm afraid he will feel defeated. Secondly, their strength was on par half a year ago, but Tong Chun was sick for half a year while Song Bao was improving every day. The gap between the two is bigger than expected. Thirdly, Tong Chin's star defense consumed too much spiritual power. I'm afraid it can't be maintained for a long time. But Song Bao's saber technique is like thunder in the clouds. The further it goes, the more powerful it is. Lu Yang and Wei Wei suddenly realized that they only saw the surface and didn't see too much. On the other hand, not only had Lin Xian grasped the two's martial techniques and cultivation, he had even taken into account their mentality and emotions. What kind of terrifying eyesight was this? The surrounding martial artists couldn't help but nod. They were even more curious about Lin Xian's identity. Sure enough, a moment later, there was a shocking change on the stage. The five-colored star finally couldn't hold on and was cut in half by the saber. Tong Chun flew out with blood at the corner of his mouth. "Haha, Brother Bao is mighty." The disciples of the Tsang family shouted and cheered. As for the Tong family, it was silent. Their faces were filled with unwillingness. Song Bao's attack succeeded, but he didn't stop. Blue lightning flashed and turned into a dazzling saber light, slashing at Tong Chun, who was on the ground. "No!" the disciples of the Tong family shouted crazily. Chapter 171. The change in the arena caused an uproar among the martial artists. The disciples of the Tong family shouted angrily, but there was nothing they could do. Song Bao was too powerful. He was so powerful that they could not resist. In the pavilion far away, the elders of the Tong family were shocked. The master of the Tong family leaped up, and his aura exploded like a flood. However, Song Bao's blade was too fast. They were too far away and did not have time to attack. They could only watch. The blade radiance was like lightning as it slashed down mercilessly. Lin Xian remained calm. He flicked his finger, and a wisp of cold air with a trace of sword essence shot out. At the same time, a white feather flew out from another direction toward the arena. Boom, boom, boom. Frost's sword finger collided with the blade radiance and quickly froze. The sword essence destroyed the blade radiance. Swoosh. The white feather was like a sharp arrow. It collided with the lightning blade radiance and created a shockwave. A ball of energy exploded, and a strong wind swept out. Everyone retreated, afraid that they would be affected. Lin Xian's eyes flickered with purple light. He saw someone running up the arena, and he knew that person. He immediately calmed down. The light dissipated, and everyone looked over eagerly. On the stage, a young man dressed in white had appeared out of nowhere, looking very elegant. Tong Chin's face was pale, and he was in low spirits. The opponent that he had originally suppressed had now completely surpassed him. This change was something that he could not accept for a moment. In the pavilion far away, the elders of the Tsang family snorted when they saw this. The disciples of the White Feather sect are really meddlesome. The Tong family's kid is lucky to have avoided this. A few elders sneered. Song Bao's strength has improved greatly. I wonder if he can defeat this opponent? The eyes of the Tsang family's grand elder flickered, and he was looking forward to it. However, I seem to have sensed another person's attack. On the other side, the elders of the Tong family heaved a sigh of relief. Their hearts that had been hanging in the air also settled down. It's fine as long as Tong Chun is fine. Xiu will be able to catch up. The master of the Tong family looked at the battle arena with a trace of doubt in his heart. Just now, I clearly felt an icy intent. Could it be that someone is secretly making a move? As a harmonious spirit realm warrior, his perception was far superior to a sea of soul realm warrior. Just now, he clearly felt two different forces colliding with the thunder blade, but he couldn't find the source of that force. Suddenly, he saw Lin Xian in the crowd. Could it be him? The head of the Tong family was shocked. Other than the White Feather sect of the Qing province, only Lin Xian could stand up for the Tong family. The head of the Tong family took a deep look at Lin Xian before slowly sitting down. On the battle stage, the white-clothed young man stood in front of Tong Chun and said in a deep voice, "Aren't you a little too ruthless? When sparring, it's inevitable to make mistakes. Isn't it normal to get injured?" Song Bao sneered. Anyway, he has been lying in bed for half a year. Even if he lies in bed for a few more days, there's nothing wrong with that. You. Tong Chun was so angry that his body was trembling. He clenched his fists so tightly that his fingernails dug into his flesh. Blood flowed down his palms. The disciples of the Tong family were furious. They cursed and scolded, but no one could defeat Song Bao. This made them feel very frustrated. This guy is really arrogant. In the crowd, Vivian said angrily. Lu Yang was puzzled. He felt Lin Xian's attack just now, and that chi made his heart tremble. Could it be that the Tong family is related to him? Do you want me to help? Lu Yang asked tentatively. No need. Just watch. Lin Xian shook his head. The White Feather sect should be able to handle it. Just as Lin Xian and the others were talking, the battle stage changed again. Tong Chun walked down the stage with a lonely face, while the white-clothed young man was going to compete with Song Bao. Haha, Wensu, your ranking is mine. Song Bao laughed wildly. Wensu? He is the White Feather Flying Wensu. He's an expert ranked 47th on the Hidden Dragon list. The surrounding warriors were in an uproar. Song Bao had threatened to kill Wensu. What an arrogant attitude. Although Song Bao's strength had increased greatly, his ranking was still in the 60s. Now, he was going to challenge Wensu, who was more than 10 ranks above him. This was definitely going to be an earth-shattering battle. As you wish. Wensu was dressed in white and looked extraordinarily handsome. He had an additional white feather in his hand, and his aura had become ethereal. Haha, 7-layered lightning blade. Song Bao roared as lightning surrounded his body. Countless bolts of lightning spread through the air and struck down continuously. Lightning flashed across the sky, producing rumbling sounds. The air was filled with a dangerous aura. Lin Xian exclaimed softly. He carefully sensed the lightning in the air, and there was a hint of surprise on his face. What a pure power of lightning! Lin Xian exclaimed in his heart. This is nothing. I'll teach you a lightning Dao martial technique. I guarantee that you'll leave him in the dust. Lord Alcohol said disdainfully. Really? Lin Xian was delighted. He had asked Lord Alcohol for a martial technique more than once, but he had been rejected because his cultivation level was too low. Now, Lord Alcohol had taken the initiative to teach him. Humph, you have the Wind Emperor's sword. If you don't have the corresponding Lightning Dao martial technique, your wind and lightning power will be incomplete. Lord Alcohol revealed the truth. I see. Lin Xian was enlightened as he calmly received Lord Alcohol's guidance. While Lin Xian was learning the martial technique, the two in the arena had already exchanged dozens of blows. Song Bao's saber technique was as fast as lightning. Every strike was like a lightning dragon, causing the air to explode. As for Wensu, he was like a small boat in a sea of lightning. He was constantly swaying as though he would capsize at any moment. However, he managed to dodge every single one of them without any mishaps. Whoosh! The white feather in his hand flew out and pierced through the void, heading straight for Song Bao's glabella. The air was torn apart like a piece of cloth. Song Bao slashed out several times, forming a resplendent saber beam that struck the white feather. Ka, ka, ka. The white feather looked weak, but at that moment, it was like a divine arrow, shattering the lightning saber beam. Lightning Sky Strike. Song Bao slashed out again, causing blue light to illuminate the surroundings. A large blue bird formed from lightning flew out from the saber. With a flap of its wings, it released countless lightning bolts. With a long cry, the lightning bird flew towards Wensu while Song Bao shot out like a bolt of lightning. Pong! The white feather pierced through Song Bao's afterimage and crashed into the ground. A thumb-sized black hole appeared. It was completely intact and bottomless. In another direction, the lightning bird pounced towards Wensu like a lightning mountain. Pooh! Pooh! Wensu's spiritual energy trembled as white wings condensed behind him. With a flap of his wings, he flew out. Hua! Could this be the White Feather sect's secret technique? White feather spreading wings. Everyone exclaimed. Lu Yang and Wei Wei sighed. With such a secret technique, one could fly for a short period of time. This was something that all Sea of Soul Realm warriors dreamed of. Flying was a skill that only warriors above the 3 spirit realms could possess. And no matter who it was in the Sea of Soul Realm, having the ability to fly was no different from having an additional layer of protection. Lu Yang looked towards Lin Xian, only to find that the latter's eyes were slightly closed as if he was asleep. He didn't pay attention to the situation on the arena at all. At that moment, when Su's voice rang out on the arena, "Let's settle this in one move." Chapter 172. The white feather behind when Su vibrated and floated in the air. He took out a feather fan, and an invisible aura rose from his body. White feather kill. When Su fanned the feather fan in his hand, and a blinding light lit up. The surrounding clouds tumbled and shot into the sky. The shadow of a giant bird emerged from the sea of clouds. It flapped its wings and swooped down. 7-layered thunder blade, 5 blades in one. Songbao also used his strongest attack. The thunder and lightning blade cut through the void, splitting everything. It carried an endless murderous aura as it slashed forward. The 5 dazzling blade lights merged, and the entire void trembled. It was as if the sky had split open, and it made people's hearts tremble. Rumble, a loud sound reverberated through half of Ice Snow City. The weaker martial artists nearby were all pushed back by the force, and some even suffered internal injuries. Liu Yang and Vivian conjured up a light barrier that enveloped Lin Xian as well. In the distance, the elders of the Tsang family all stood up and looked at the arena nervously. The group of martial artists also steadied themselves and craned their necks to look. Song Bao's face was a little pale, and his chest was heaving up and down. Obviously, this move had consumed a lot of his energy. On the other side, when Su landed on the ground with a complicated expression, "Who won?" Everyone was curious. Vivian looked at Lin Xian and sighed. If Lin Xian was watching the battle, he would definitely be able to tell. However, he closed his eyes and remained silent. A piece of sleeve fell from the sky like a large snowflake, pure white and flawless. That seems to be when Su's sleeve. Finally, someone said with a trembling voice, "What?" Everyone was shocked and looked carefully. Sure enough, they found that when Su's sleeve was missing a piece. "You won." When Su sighed and turned to walk down the battle arena. "Brother Bao is mighty. Brother Bao is mighty." The disciples of the Tsang family all shouted loudly, and their faces were full of pride. Everyone was shocked, and they were even more afraid of Tsang Bao. If there were no accidents, Tsang Bao's ranking would definitely be in the top 50, or even top 40. The elders of the Tsang family heaved a sigh of relief, and their eyes flickered. If everything goes smoothly, our Tsang family will soon become the #1 family in the Qing province. The few elders were excited. Tsang Bao walked off the stage and did not continue the competition. He needed a good rest. However, the Tsang family didn't stop there. Song Lei's face was full of arrogance. He jumped directly into the ring and shouted, "Last time I beat up a few people from Yunzhou, but they were not convinced. Now, I'll give you a chance. I'll stand here and wait for you Cloud State warriors." Song Lei's words were insolent and arrogant. Everyone was silent. Song Bao's performance just now made them not dare to offend the Tsang family's disciples. The surrounding martial artists had strange expressions on their faces. Many of the newcomers did not know what was going on. I don't know why the Tsang family is targeting the warriors of the Cloud Prefecture. In the past few days, many warriors of the Cloud Prefecture have been injured by the Tsang family. So that's how it is. After understanding the situation, many people had sympathetic looks on their faces. The disciples of the Tong family all had gloomy expressions. They knew that the reason the Tsang family did this was because of Lin Xian. Humph, if Big Brother Lin was here, they wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. Tong Yu's face was full of anger. The disciples of the Cloud State in the crowd had bitter expressions. They did not understand why the Tsang family would target them. In the pavilion far away, the elders of the Tong family also sighed and shook their heads. The Tsang family's power has been established. I'm afraid we're in danger. Not necessarily. The head of the Tong family said in a low voice, "Lin Xian is already here." "What? Lin Xian, that kid is here." The elders' faces were full of joy. They did not forget the situation that day. Lin Xian used the cultivation of the second sky of the spiritual sea realm to shake Tsang Lei, who was at the peak of the third sky of the spiritual sea realm. He even faintly suppressed the opponent. If Lin Xian is here, he can definitely defeat Tsang Lei. Some elders were excited. So what? The Tsang family still has Tsang Bao with abnormal strength. I'm afraid that those who are ranked 45th on the hidden dragon list and below can't defeat him. The elders had different opinions. Some were happy and some were worried. No matter what, at least we can suppress the Tsang family's arrogance. This was the last hope of the Tong family. In another pavilion, the elders of the 3 sects of the Cloud Prefecture were all here. These people's faces were very ugly. Their disciples were all injured, and some were still lying on the bed. They've gone too far. Let's go find the Tsang family and ask for an explanation. An elder of the Lotus Glory sect suddenly stood up. Forget it. Wouldn't people like us be laughing at our Cloud Prefecture when juniors fight? An elder of the Purple Cloud sect said in a low voice. On the battle martial stage, Songlei had a smug expression. With a command, he shocked everyone to the point that they did not dare to go on stage. This feeling was too good. Martial artists of the Cloud Prefecture, listen well. If you meet Lin Xian, tell him that I'm not to be trifled with. Tell him to obediently kowtow and admit his mistake. Song Lei's voice spread everywhere. Lin Xian? Who is Lin Xian? What did he do? The surrounding martial artists were puzzled. Some of the disciples of the 3 sects of the Cloud Prefecture had a huge change in expression, as if they remembered something terrifying. Lin Xian, this scum of the Cloud Prefecture, actually sneak-attacked our Tsang family's disciples. If you want to blame someone, blame that Lin Xian. In the crowd, Murong Qinling and the others had strange expressions. Could the Lin Xian he's talking about be junior brother Lin? Impossible. Wasn't junior brother Lin trapped in the trial ground of blood? It must be someone with the same name. But that person claimed to be from the Cloud Prefecture. He should be junior brother Lin. Murong Qinling had a trace of expectation in her heart. Lin Xian came out. He's still alive. Not only were they surprised, but the elders of the 3 sects of the Cloud Prefecture were even more shocked. Lin Xian. He came out? In the pavilion, everyone looked at the Black Sky sect. Many people's expressions trembled. Elder Duanmu laughed bitterly. You don't have to look at me. I don't know anything. However, I hope that he really came out. That way, our Cloud Prefecture will be saved. Everyone was silent. Elder Duanmu was right. If it really was that Lin Xian, he should be able to save the reputation of the Cloud Prefecture. He had comprehended sword intent and obtained the inheritance. No one knew how far he would grow. The 2 words Lin Xian seemed to have a magical power that shook everyone. Other than the elders of the 3 sects, when the other forces of the Cloud Prefecture heard it, their hearts burned with passion. That was the person who obtained the inheritance. We must capture him and ask for the martial arts inheritance, the Ling family's elders said coldly. In the crowd, Vivian and Lu Yang looked at each other and then looked at Lin Xian. They didn't expect that Lin Xian had a grudge with the Tsang family. They also didn't expect Lin Xian to be a martial artist from the Cloud Prefecture. That was the most backward place. How could such a freak appear? You're talking nonsense. Big Brother Lin didn't sneak attack you. It's your Tsang family that's shameless. Big Brother Lin couldn't stand our spiritual grass and attacked. Tong Yu was so angry that she cried. This news was like a heavy bomb that smashed everyone. It seemed that the matter wasn't as simple as it seemed on the surface. It might involve some aristocratic families. At least, there was the shadow of the Tsang family and the Tong family. For a moment, everyone was interested in this martial artist named Lin Xian. You're courting death. In the arena, Song Lei was furious and punched out. Blue lightning flashed and turned into a lightning beast that charged towards Tong Yu. Chapter 173. Tong Yu's words enraged Song Lei. He could not wait to kill Tong Yu. He punched out with both fists. Lightning surged and intertwined into a ferocious thunder beast. It bared its fangs and brandished its claws as it pounced towards the Tong family. Let's do it together. Tong Lan shouted, and the few people beside him formed a sword array. A shadow of an ancient sword flashed past, slaying the lightning beast. Come at me together if you dare. I will play with you. Song Lei said arrogantly. The Tong family disciples' faces turned green. They had to work together to block Song Lei's attack. They were no match for him alone. Song Lei's punch stunned the Tong family disciples. He then looked in another direction. I heard that you are the number one of the younger generation in Yunzhou. Come and fight me. Song Lei pointed at a young man in the Yunzhou martial artist area and sneered. You are Zheng Jun, right? 88th on the hidden dragon roll. Zheng Jun's face changed. After he came out from the trials of blood, his strength had increased tremendously. He had finally reached 88th on the hidden dragon roll. He was considered the most powerful among the younger generation in Yunzhou. However, he did not expect that this ranking would bring him danger. Zhang Jun felt the terrifying aura from Song Lei. He had no intention to fight. The corner of his mouth twitched. Zhang Jun said in a low voice, I am not the number one in Yunzhou. I cannot represent Yunzhou. Oh, if you are not, then who is? Song Lei's lips curled into an evil smile. When the surrounding Yunzhou martial artists heard this, their hearts raced. They were afraid that Zheng Jun would throw the title of number one to them, especially those who were similar in strength to Zheng Jun. They were so scared that their foreheads were sweating. Lin Xian, he is the number one in Yunzhou, Zheng Jun said in a low voice. Since Lin Xian had offended them and they could not find him, they could not do anything about it. As expected, after Song Lei heard this, the smile on his face disappeared. You dare to tease me? A sliver of lightning appeared on his body, throbbing violently. All right, don't make it difficult for them. I will fight with you. Murong Qianling stood out. Murong, don't be rash. Some people advised her in a low voice. She was not his opponent. Yunzhou disciples can be defeated, but they cannot run. Even if I lose, I still want to go up. Murong Qianling's eyes were firm. On the side, Wang Jianqing, Yuan Fei, Xie Changfeng, and the others' eyes dimmed. They had all been defeated by Song Lei a few days ago, so it was useless for them to go up now. Oh, there's finally someone who isn't afraid of death. Song Lei had a playful look on his face. Not bad, you're quite handsome. Why don't you be my bed-warming maid? Aqua Moon's sword. Murong Qianling's pretty face was cold as the long sword in her hand quickly pierced out. A crescent-shaped sword radiance slashed out, like a flower in the mist or a moon in the water. Too weak. Song Lei punched out with his right fist, shattering the sword chi. At the same time, it formed a giant hand of thunder and lightning, grabbing toward Yi Fuyan. Murong Qianling's face was pale. The other party's strength was too powerful. She was not a match at all. However, it was impossible for her to admit defeat just like that. Murong Qianling's body floated and dodged unceasingly. In the crowd, Vivian looked at the stage anxiously. Since she knew that Lin Xian was a disciple of the Cloud State, she naturally didn't want any disciple of the Cloud State to get hurt. Aya, junior brother Lin, why are you cultivating at this time? Vivian cried out in dissatisfaction. She naturally saw that Lin Xian wasn't sleeping on purpose. Instead, he had fallen into a very strange state. There was a cry of alarm on the stage. Murong Qianling's face was pale as she was about to be swallowed by the thunder and lightning. Vivian clenched her teeth and prepared to make a move. At this moment, Lin Xian in front of her moved. He slowly opened his eyes as if he had just woken up from a deep sleep. The golden electric arc in his eyes was like a flash of lightning. Whoosh! His body swayed and Lin Xian disappeared from his original spot. On the stage, the blue hand of thunder and lightning covered the sky and earth. It was incomparably ferocious and was about to grab Murong Qianling. At this moment, a golden bolt of lightning flashed by at an extreme speed. With a flash of golden light, Murong Qianling's body disappeared. Rumble! The blue hand of thunder and lightning smashed on the ground, and a terrifying pit appeared. There was even a trace of black smoke coming out from the surroundings. It didn't hit? Song Lei was stunned and looked around. Everyone was also stunned. Most of them didn't see what had just happened. Only Cang Bao, Wen Su, and a few others saw someone saving Murong Qianling. Behind, the surrounding martial artists quickly shouted. Song Lei suddenly turned his head and a cruel smile appeared on his face. However, when he saw the figure, he was stunned. Lin Xian. He gritted his teeth and said, What? He's Lin Xian? The surrounding martial artists were in an uproar as they looked at the young man on the stage. Not only them, the martial artists of the Cloud region, the elders of the Tong family, the elders of the three sects of the Cloud region, and various forces were all looking at Lin Xian. Junior brother Lin, you're finally here. Murong Qianling's beautiful eyes were filled with tears. Ever since Lin Xian participated in the trial of blood, Murong Qianling's identity changed from a teacher to a senior sister. This was the sex rule. If Lin Xian entered the harmonious spirit realm, perhaps those disciples would have to call him martial uncle. Senior sister Murong, don't worry. Leave everything to me. Although Lin Xian was comprehending the lightning martial arts, he still left a part of his consciousness outside. Therefore, he was aware of everything that happened outside. Murong Qianling nodded and walked down the stage. Only Zhang Lei and Lin Xian were left on the stage. Everyone looked at Lin Xian and carefully sized him up. This was a handsome young man with a slender body and deep eyes. He was wearing a thick white bear coat, and there was a furry pet on his shoulder. Is this really the #1 martial artist of the Cloud region who injured the Tsang family's disciple? Everyone was suspicious. This is clearly a neighborhood boy. Lin Xian, you're finally here. I'll break your bones one by one and let you live like a dog for the rest of your life. Zhang Lei's expression was vicious, as if he was a demon from hell. Lin Xian's expression was cold. Since you want to live like this, I'll fulfill your wish. This expression again. Zhang Lei was going crazy in his heart. Pretend. I'll let you pretend. I'll kill you later. Hearing Lin Xian's words, the surrounding martial artists were also in an uproar. Although his appearance and cultivation didn't look like the #1 martial artist of the Cloud region, his tone and expression made everyone feel that the young man in front of them wasn't simple. After all, no one dared to offend the Tsang family now. In a pavilion far away, the Tsang family's elders snorted coldly. Daring to injure my Tsang family's disciple, I'll let you live a life worse than death. Directly suppress him and make him a slave of the Tsang family. The Tsang family's elders were very cruel. The Tong family's elders had a look of anticipation. They were looking forward to Lin Xian defeating Zhang Lei and dampening the Tsang family's prestige. The elders of the 3 sects of the Cloud region had a look of worry. Lin Xian's cultivation is only at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean realm. I'm afraid he has no chance of winning. Maybe not as good as Zhang Jun. After all, he's just a brat. Elder Shui sneered. He didn't want Lin Xian to win. The news that Lin Xian was still alive already made him very unhappy. Elder Duanmu took a deep breath, and his eyes shone brightly. No matter what, this time, we can't let Lin Xian suffer any harm. On the battle stage, Zhang Lei's expression was cold. The aura on his body kept rising, and blue lightning circled around him, making a rumbling sound. You've angered me. No one can save you. Lin Xian's face darkened slightly, and golden lightning arcs jumped in his eyes. Chapter 174. Can that brat really contend against Zhang Lei? He's only at the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean tier. I don't know. Cloud State's martial artist cultivation is generally low. This might be their strongest battle prowess. The surrounding martial artists looked at the stage and discussed animatedly. Zhang Jun's face was gloomy. In order to avoid a battle, he casually put the title of Cloud State's #1 on Lin Xian's head. He originally thought that Lin Xian disappeared and wouldn't appear. Who knew this would happen? Now, he hated Lin Xian to lose immediately, or else he would go crazy. Humph, a bunch of idiots. Wait until you see junior brother Lin's strength. Don't be scared to tears. Lu Yang was full of confidence in Lin Xian. Ha 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 ha. Zhang Lei laughed loudly. The aura on his body rose to an extreme, then dispersed with a loud bang. Like raging waves crashing on the shore, it rolled up thousands of layers of clouds. I've already broken through to the 4th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. I can kill you with one hand. What? 4th layer of the spiritual ocean tier. Even Zhang Lei broke through. The Tong family's disciples looked terrible. Cloud State's martial artists were also nervous to the extreme. Even some of the elders in the distance had their hearts in their mouths. Originally, they thought that Lin Xian had a chance of winning. But now, the situation was hard to say. Although Lin Xian had sword intent, the further one reached the spiritual ocean tier, the greater the gap. The surrounding warriors also sighed. Originally, they wanted to watch a fierce battle, But now, it seemed that the result was already very obvious. Idiot, Lin Xian even killed a martial artist comparable to the fifth layer of the spiritual ocean tier, not to mention Song Lei. Lu Yang looked at everyone's expression and sneered in his heart. If this is what you're counting on, then I'm very disappointed. Lin Xian's voice was cold. He opened his 5 fingers slightly, and golden arcs of lightning danced on his fingertips. Just nice. I'll use you to test it out. Lin Xian just got the lightning sacred art from Lord Alcohol, so it was a good time to test it out. Arrogant. Die. Song Lei attacked like a thunder god. He punched out with both fists, and 2 lightning pythons shot out. What a terrifying lightning aura. Some cultivators' voices trembled. Good job, Brother Lei. Kill him. The disciples of the Tsang family shouted. Song Bao looked at the field and nodded slightly. Lei has already mastered the Thunder Tyrant Fist. It shouldn't be hard for him to enter the top 60 of the Hidden Dragon ranking. Chain Lightning. Lin Xian's body remained motionless as he abruptly descended. Boom. 5 bolts of golden lightning suddenly struck down from the sky. It was extremely violent. Each of them was as thick as a human thigh. The 5 lightning bolts lined up in a row and blasted into the blue lightning python's body, directly penetrating it. This time, the scene was too shocking. The 10-meter-long lightning python was directly cut apart and turned into dust. What? He's also a Thunder Attribute martial artist? At this moment, all the surrounding martial artists were stunned. Lin Xian's move was too brilliant. It was so brilliant that it blinded their eyes. I'm afraid even Song Bao wouldn't be able to achieve such a high level of control over lightning. Why do I feel that his lightning is even more terrifying than Song Lei's? Many martial artists were surprised. Song Bao squinted his eyes and looked coldly at Lin Xian. There was a hint of greed in his eyes. Golden lightning. What a high grade. If I can get this lightning, I'm afraid entering the top 30 of the Hidden Dragon ranking wouldn't be a problem. Song Bao wasn't the only one. All the elders of the Tsang family were shocked. Golden lightning? Isn't this the lightning in the legends? How could that kid have it? No, we must capture this person. Only our Tsang family deserves to have this kind of lightning. The elders of the Tsang family made a decision. No matter the result of the competition, they wouldn't let Lin Xian go. Damn it, it's this kind of lightning again. Song Lei's face was ferocious. Last time, he was completely restrained by this golden lightning. I can only use that move. A hint of ruthlessness appeared in his eyes as he formed a strange seal with his palm. A dangerous aura was emitted from his body, making people's hearts tremble. Lin Xian frowned. His body turned into a ray of light and rushed over. He didn't want to waste time on a small character like Song Lei. Your Tsang family oppressed my fellow martial artists of Cloud State and even injured my sect's disciples. This kind of crime is unforgivable. Lin Xian's voice was loud like a bell, shaking the 9 heavens. He arrived in front of Song Lei in a flash and slammed his palm down. Golden lightning ring. A golden lightning ring flew out and wrapped around Song Lei. Then, it released a powerful lightning power. Crackle. As if a golden sea of lightning appeared, it covered the area and destroyed everything. Everyone stared blankly and was stunned for a moment. When the lightning disappeared, Song Lei's body was charred black. His hair stood on end, and the defensive armor on his body was broken. A smell of barbecued meat came, mixed with a hint of burnt smell. Just one hit, and Song Lei was severely injured. This kind of method was too terrifying. One had to know that Lin Xian was only a martial artist in the 3rd layer of the spiritual ocean realm, while Song Lei was a martial artist in the 4th layer. Although it was only a difference of 1 layer, there was a world of difference between them. This kind of method to fight above one's level could only be done by some very powerful martial arts geniuses. Everyone didn't dare to underestimate Lin Xian anymore. This was definitely a young demon king. You dare to hurt me. I'm going to kill you. Song Lei went crazy. He didn't think that Lin Xian could defeat him in one move. He endured the pain and took out a walnut-sized bead from his storage ring. There was a bitter smile on his face. I'm going to let you die without a burial place. Not good. This is the Thunderfire bead. It can kill all martial artists below the 7th layer of the spiritual ocean realm. When the surrounding martial artists saw it, they all retreated in fear. And Lin Xian raised his eyebrows. Purple light flashed in his eyes as he released a soul attack. Ah! Song Lei's face was twisted with struggle. Finally, he handed the thunder fire bead to Lin Xian while trembling. What? Is Song Lei crazy? The group of people was so shocked that their jaws dropped. Bastard! What did you do to Brother Lei? The disciples of the Tsang family were furious. Song Bao also frowned, his eyes full of confusion. Lin Xian put away the thunder fire bead, then looked at Song Lei with a cold smile. His gaze was like a sword, waking Song Lei up instantly. What did you do to me? My big brother is here. He won't let you go. The Tsang family won't let you go either. Song Lei's eyes were filled with fear as he screamed crazily. You shouldn't have attacked the martial artists of Cloud State, and definitely shouldn't have attacked my fellow disciples. Lin Xian's voice was cold, colder than the ice and snow of Snow State. Since you did it, you have to pay the price. Golden lightning danced on his fingertips, forming a golden whirlpool. Traces of terrifying aura came from it as if it was going to destroy everything. No! Big brother, save me. Song Lei used his remaining strength to escape while shouting loudly at the same time. Who? Lin Xian's palm fell. Swoosh! A dazzling saber light lit up, cut through the air, and slashed at Lin Xian. It was a powerful and terrifying saber. It directly cut the battle stage into 2 halves. At the same time, a blue figure flew out and landed on the stage. Big brother. Song Lei's voice was full of surprise. Everyone looked over and saw Song Bao standing opposite Lin Xian with a cold expression. Don't you think you went too far? Too far? When you attacked the martial artists of Cloud State, did you think you went too far? When you attacked my fellow disciples, did you think you were cruel? Now you're saying this to me. You asked for it. I hit them. What can you do? Brother, don't waste your time talking to him. Just capture him and bring him back to the family. Song Lei stood behind Song Bao with a vicious expression. Chapter 175. With Song Bao's support, Song Lei became arrogant again. The disciples of Cloud State were furious. The Tsang family was too much of a bully. Even some of the onlooking disciples were furious. Many of them began to support Lin Xian. I've said it before. No one can save you. Lin Xian's eyes were like sharp swords that pierced through the front. Humph. You? My brother can crush you with one hand. Song Lei shouted from behind. Whoosh. Lin Xian's body flashed and disappeared. Song Bao's pupils constricted, and he was furious. He had defeated Wen Su, who was ranked 47th, and was in the limelight. He thought that he could intimidate everyone, but he did not expect Lin Xian to attack him in front of him. The surrounding martial artists were also stunned. This was too fierce. He really dared to attack Song Bao? Song Bao stomped his feet, and the lightning on his body surged out crazily. It was as if it had turned into thousands of lightning spears that pierced in all directions. Chi-chi. Golden electric arcs jumped, and Lin Xian's figure appeared from the side. He pulled out an arc of electric light from his hand and formed a circle of electric rings that enveloped Song Bao. Humph, break for me. Song Bao sneered and slashed out with the long saber in his hand. The saber light cut through the void and slashed at the golden electric rings in the air. Chi-chi. The long saber was like a rainbow as it cut through the golden electric rings like tofu and quickly slashed at Lin Xian. Not good. Song Bao is too powerful. Murong Qianling and the others' faces changed. The Tong family disciples all exclaimed. The surrounding martial artists were also extremely nervous. Could Song Bao be so powerful that he could kill Lin Xian with one slash? Lu Yang and Wei Wei looked strange, but they were not too worried. They had seen Lin Xian's strength. Song Bao was not much different from the one-eyed wolf bandit. If Lin Xian could kill the one-eyed wolf bandit, he would definitely not be hit by Song Bao. In the distant pavilion, the elders all frowned. Among them, the elders of the Tsang family looked solemn, and there was a trace of uneasiness in their hearts. Chi-chi. The saber radiance flashed like a bolt of lightning, piercing through Lin Xian. The hearts of Murong Qianling and the others trembled as they felt a burst of dizziness. They didn't believe that Lin Xian would die just like that. Chi, chi, chi. Lin Xian's split body didn't spurt out blood. Instead, it turned into a ball of lightning and flew in all directions. Phantom. Song Bao's pupils shrank. He seemed to have thought of something terrifying. Ah, big brother, save me. A blood-curdling scream came from behind. Song Bao turned around abruptly, his entire being raging with rage. I've said it before. No one can save you. Lin Xian's voice was calm and steady. However, when these words entered the ears of the Tsang family disciples, it was like a clap of thunder from the 9 heavens, shocking them to the point their hearts trembled. Without any hesitation, Lin Xian's palm glowed with a golden lightning vortex. Then, he blasted it at Song Lei's dantian. Puff. Song Lei rolled out like a dead dog. The blue saber radiance flashed and slashed towards Lin Xian. This saber was extremely fast, like a flash of lightning. However, Lin Xian's speed was even faster. He turned into a golden line and retreated rapidly. Rumble. Where Lin Xian originally stood, a huge crack appeared and spread into the distance. My spiritual sea. My spiritual sea is shattered. Song Lei rolled on the ground and kept screaming, You actually shattered my spiritual sea. I want you dead. What? Song Lei is crippled. Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect things to turn out like this. In this world where martial arts were respected, a crippled spiritual sea meant that one could no longer cultivate. This was a fate crueler than death. The surrounding martial artists stared blankly at Lin Xian. An inexplicable fear arose in their hearts. This young man seemed gentle, but when he did things, he was decisive and without hesitation. Even in the face of a powerhouse like Song Bao, he couldn't change his mind. Since you bullied the martial artists of Cloud State and my sect, you should be prepared to be crippled. Lin Xian's voice was like a sharp sword that pierced through the sky. The martial artists of Cloud State trembled and looked at Lin Xian with excitement. The disciples of the 3 sects were panting heavily. They felt their blood boiling. Originally, they were unhappy with Lin Xian. However, now, Lin Xian dared to challenge the entire Tsang family for them in Cloud State. This kind of courage made them excited and made them yearn for it. What was the attitude of a powerhouse? If I want you to live, you can't die. If I want you to die, no one can save you. Not even God. Wang Jianqing, Yuan Fei, Shangguan Luyun, and the others clenched their fists tightly. Lin Xian's figure had been deeply imprinted in their hearts and became the direction they pursued. In the distant pavilion, the elders of Cloud State's 3 sects also stood up excitedly. Awesome. This feeling is too awesome. For the past few days, they had been suppressed by the Tsang family. Many people mocked Cloud State. They were angry and unwilling, but they were powerless to fight back. As a major force in Green State, the Tsang family was much stronger than them. As for the younger generation, Song Lei alone was enough to suppress the martial artists of Cloud State. Now, the devil in their hearts was lying on the ground like a dog. And all of this was done by Lin Xian. He was a disciple of Cloud State. F***CK, this is too awesome. Let's see who dares to say that Cloud State has no one. An elder of the Black Heaven sect shouted. On the other side, the elders of the Tsang family were in an uproar. Many of them stood up and prepared to capture Lin Xian. Stop. If we make a move now, what will the martial artists of the world think of us? The Tsang family's grand elder said coldly. Are we going to let him go just like that? The other elders roared angrily. Let him go? How can we? I want him to suffer a fate worse than death. The Tsang family's grand elder said cruelly. Let's leave the surface matters to the younger generation. If we make a move, those old guys from Cloud State will also make a move. Although our Tsang family isn't afraid of them, this isn't Green State. We don't have enough people, so we can't act rashly. When this is over, we'll secretly capture that kid, extract his lightning, and make him a slave of the Tsang family forever. The group of Tsang family's elders calmed down and sat down. Their eyes flashed and their smiles were cruel. On the combat stage, Song Lei had been carried down. However, things weren't over yet. Song Bao's face was ferocious as he glared at Lin Xian. He couldn't wait to hack him to death. Kid, you'll regret this. I'll make you pay. No one can hurt a disciple of the Tsang family. The lightning on Song Bao's body rumbled and formed a black cloud above him. The wind and snow between heaven and earth became even stronger. The cold wind blew, as cold as the blades of a blade. However, no one felt the cold. Their bodies were trembling slightly as they stared at the stage with excitement. Exciting, too exciting. Someone dared to make a move on the Tsang family. The surrounding martial artists were as excited as if they were on steroids. Fight! 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 Everyone raised their arms and shouted. Thousands of voices gathered together and formed a torrent that shook the heavens and earth. The entire Ice Snow City was alarmed. More martial artists rushed over. Lin Xian stared at Song Bao. The battle intent in his heart continued to rise. Doesn't your Tsang family like to suppress the martial artists of Cloud State? Today, I'll represent the martial artists of Cloud State and beat your Tsang family until you can't raise your head. Chapter 176. Powerful, too powerful. Who would have thought that a martial artist at the third level of the spiritual ocean realm would dare to go against Song Bao? That was an elite that even when Su defeated Peng, Song Bao was enraged. His long saber slashed out continuously, forming a saber light in the air. More than half of the sky was covered by the light. The saber light was brilliant, illuminating the front. Lin Xian swayed and kept flashing, dodging all the attacks. He leaned forward, waving his hands. Chain lightning. The clouds rolled, and 5 golden lightning bolts struck down. The sea of lightning rolled around, emitting energy waves that made people's hearts palpitate. Boom! Song Bao's long saber turned into lightning, and a lightning bird gushed out from the materialized saber light. With a flap of its wings, it charged into the sky. Rumble, blue lightning bird versus golden lightning. Both were extremely violent energies. When the two collided, they exploded. The entire battle martial stage was shaking. Fortunately, this stage was built with special stones that were extremely hard. Otherwise, this would be enough to turn the stage into dust. That blue lightning bird was pierced through in an instant. 5 terrifying holes the size of buckets appeared. However, his 5 lightning bolts didn't strike down. The injured lightning bird turned into a ball of lightning fire, burning fiercely and exhausting the energy of the 5 golden lightning bolts. With one blow, the two were evenly matched. Cloud State's martial artists all looked at Lin Xian excitedly. Although they admired Lin Xian, they didn't think that Lin Xian could contend against Song Bao. But now, it seemed that Lin Xian's strength was even more terrifying than they imagined. Lu Yang and Wei Wei watched with a smile. They knew that Lin Xian's strongest point wasn't lightning, but sword arts. Lin Xian didn't use his sword, which meant that he had enough confidence. Damn it! Song Bao was furious. He couldn't get the upper hand. This situation was unexpected. Even in the competition with Wen Su, he had absolute confidence. But now, he didn't have any confidence. 7-fold Thunder Saber. Lightning jumped on Song Bao's body, bursting out with powerful energy. He used his strongest attack. His long saber was wrapped in endless lightning, looking azure. Here it comes, Brother Leopard's strongest attack. 7-layered Thunder Blade. Brother Leopard is mighty. The Tsang family's disciples all shouted. Everyone was nervous. They didn't know if Lin Xian would be defeated by the 7-fold Thunder Blade like Wen Su. In a distant pavilion, the hands of the Tsang family's elder were sweating. The 7-fold Thunder Blade should be able to subdue this brat, right? What are you thinking? This is my Tsang family's spirit tier martial art. It will definitely be able to defeat that little thief. The elder of the Tsang family felt a trace of worry. Your strongest attack? Lin Xian's lips curled up slightly. His hands began to form a seal, and a whirlpool of golden lightning appeared in his hands. The golden vortex spun at high speed like a whirlwind. Lightning flashed within it. Although the lightning vortex was only the size of a palm, no one dared to underestimate it. 7-layered Thunder Blade. 3 blades in one. 3 phantoms of thunder blades formed behind Song Bao. They were more than 10 meters tall, and looked like small mountains. Under his control, the three thunder blade phantoms quickly merged into one and slashed forward. Air waves rolled, snowflakes flew backward, and the sky was filled with snow. The huge thunder blade seemed to have cut open the entire space, forming a vacuum zone in front of it. Lightning storm. The golden vortex in Lin Xian's hand flew out and grew bigger. In the sky above the battle stage, a golden cloud seemed to have appeared and shrouded Song Bao. Rumble. Lightning flashed and the storm danced, drowning the front. Everyone's eyelids twitched as they constantly retreated, afraid of being contaminated by the lightning. Song Bao was hit by the lightning storm and let out a miserable cry. How is this possible? When the Tsang family's elders saw this scene, they all stood up. The great elder even smashed a table into pieces. Lin Xian's body kept rising as he dodged the thunder blade in the air. Not good. Lin Xian is going to be hit? A martial artist exclaimed. Could it be that both of them are going to be seriously injured? Lin Xian, Murong Qianling, and the rest were extremely anxious. Wei Wei and Lu Yang were also on tenterhooks as they watched nervously. Humph, the sevenfold thunder blade isn't that easy to dodge. In the pavilion, the Tsang family's great elder said coldly. The blade light shrouded the bottom and was about to hit Lin Xian. Boom! The blade light exploded like a ball of sun, incomparably dazzling. Everyone closed their eyes, not daring to look directly. After a long time, when the light dissipated, everyone opened their eyes and impatiently looked over. They saw that the spiritual energy on Song Bao's body was shattered, and there were holes in his body. His face was black and his hair was disheveled. He was in a sorry state. Although he was seriously injured, at least he survived. He looked in front of him and saw that it was scorched black, and there was a bottomless hole. Humph! No matter how strong you are, you were still cut down by me. Ha 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 ha. Song Bao looked up and laughed. Are you talking about me? A faint voice came from behind him. What? Song Bao's voice stopped abruptly as if he was choked by someone. His face was stiff and his smile was still on his face, but his eyes were filled with horror. Behind him, Lin Xian was wearing a white bear coat. It was white and flawless, like an elegant prince. Impossible. Song Bao turned back and screamed, How can you be completely fine? He did not believe it. He did not believe it at all. Although it was just 3 blades in one, the power was not something that ordinary people could block. He believed that under that blade, even an expert of the same level would not be able to escape unscathed. However, Lin Xian was not injured at all. Song Bao was not the only one shocked. Everyone was stunned. In their opinion, even if Lin Xian could block this blade, he would at least be seriously injured like Song Bao. However, the reality before their eyes told them that Lin Xian was completely fine. Is this guy still human? I feel like I'm dreaming. Many martial artists felt that their heads were stuck and could not think properly. Impossible. How can he dodge the sevenfold thunder blade unscathed? The elders of the Tsang family were in a mess. That was their Tsang family's ultimate move, but someone had managed to dodge it unscathed. Damn it, this kid must have some secrets. We have to capture him, said an elder of the Tsang family through gritted teeth. In fact, Lin Xian was able to dodge the blade thanks to Wen Su. When Wen Su and Song Bao were fighting, Lin Xian was shocked by the flight of white feathers. Although he was learning martial arts from Lord Alcohol, he still left a trace of his consciousness. He copied Wen Su's flight of white feathers into his mind. With the great dragon sword seal's unparalleled saint technique, Lin Xian could use this ultimate move to dodge the sevenfold thunder blade. Humph, don't be so smug. That was just an appetizer. Now, I'll show you the true power of the sevenfold thunder blade. Song Bao decided to use 5 blades in one. That was his strongest attack. He took a deep breath and circulated his spiritual energy to the maximum. The blade in his hand shone brightly as the phantom of a thunder blade appeared behind him. 5 blades in one? Lin Xian smirked. Since you want to lose, I'll let you lose completely. He flicked his storage ring and the autumn scar sword appeared in his hand. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.